Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this kind of content, consider hitting the subscribe button. It really helps a lot, and it keeps these long stories going. Also, I'd love to hear from you. What time is it right now where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? And if these stories help you sleep, feel free to tap the thanks button to support the channel. It truly means a lot. All right, let's get into it. The click of the radio pulling me out of sleep feels sharper at 10:02 p.m. than any siren ever did. I'm crouched in my chair at the dispatch console, half awake, half listening, heart already spiking as I hear the faint tremor in the caller's voice. A woman on the edge of tears telling me she can't find her 6-year-old son. I thumb the mic button and keep my voice steady. Unit 47, we've got a possible missing child at 312 Evergreen Drive. Mother reports son wandered off 10 minutes ago. He's 4 foot tall, red jacket, blue jeans, ETA 18. I close my eyes for just a heartbeat, picturing the kid's terrified face, then shove back and grab my coat. The streets are slick from earlier rain. Water gathers in potholes like dark eyes, watching every tire glide in. My tires hiss as I pull into Evergreen. Streetlights cast a jaundiced yellow over pale houses, trimmed lawns too still, every leaf heavy and motionless. Mrs. Patel meets me on the porch, voice cracking. He loves hide and seek. He thought I wasn't looking. Her eyes are haunted, scanning each shadow. I promise her we'll find him and step onto the lawn. The cold creeps in under my jacket, my breath steaming in front of my face. I call for K9, alert the neighbors, start grid-searching gardens and porches. The radio is non-stop now, echoing my own racing thoughts. I check behind every trash bin, under every bush, but there's no sign, just the thud of my boots in damp grass. In the distance, an owl's call sounds like laughter. By 10:27 p.m., sunlight's long gone. I pause at a gap between 2 hedges, thinking I hear small feet padding away. I flick on my flashlight and step forward. Bright beam, cutting through darkness to reveal him. Crouched behind a rose bush, face streaked with tears and dirt. Relief and fury twist together in my chest. I kneel, keep my tone gentle. Hey, buddy, you gave us quite a scare. He reaches out and I scoop him up, fingers wet against my neck. I carry him back to his mother, who clutches him like her heart's been ripped open and sewn back wrong. I file the report as cleared, but the image sticks. Damp curls plastered to his forehead, eyes too big, too dark. The shift barely begins before dispatch crackles again. Unit 47, possible domestic, 418, North Wilcox Drive. I ease my cruiser toward Wilcox, switching off the scanner and leaning into cold fury. I've seen enough so-called no-big-deal calls unravel into nightmares. When I arrive, a door is ajar, hallway lights thrown wide inside. I announce myself. Police. Anybody home? My voice echoes. No answer. Inside, furniture is overturned. Family photos cracked on the floor, a lamp shattered like spilled milk. I slip off my belt and leave the taser in the car, picking up only my flashlight and radio. Every creak on the stairs whistles through my ears. Halfway up, I hear it, muffled sobbing, and the soft thump of someone hitting the floor. I break into a run, rounding the corner to find a woman collapsed against the wall. Dark bruises mar her cheek, eyes swollen, shirt torn. She jerks when she sees me, fear blooming in her chest. He's still here, she gasps. He said if I called, he'd kill him. She lifts a trembling hand. I crouch beside her, voice low. Who? Where? She nods toward the bedroom door, closed, heavy, sinister. I draw my weapon and radio for backup. Possible armed male barricaded 418 North Wilcox. Keep the street clear. The radio's shrill crackle feels like a countdown. I ease the door open and train my light inside. Empty. Just a bloodied blanket on the bed, pillows slashed open. No attacker, no children, just the hollow echo of his footsteps leaving. I circle the room, gut knotted, heart stutter beating. The windows broken, shards glinting like teeth against the moonlight. I realize I've been chasing wind. The woman's sobs return, louder than any shout. I usher her out, guiding each step, and lock down the house. We'll comb the neighborhood, check the gutters, alleys, every hideaway where someone could slip away. But the worst part? The image in that room, her terror suspended in the air, colder than this October night. By midnight, nothing. No leads. I fill in blanks on the report, circle back to dispatch, and the scanner's death becomes a static hum. But even that hum is too loud. My phone vibrates. A text from my partner. "You good?" I stare at it, thumb hovering over yes, but it feels like a lie. Then the lights at dispatch flare. Unit 47, new priority. Shots fired, 209 Templeton Avenue. In the foggy distance, I spot hallway lights flickering in a cramped apartment building. I approach on foot, warning neighbors to stay inside. A uniform stands outside the door. Officer Mendoza, his face pale. He gives a curt nod and steps back. I fling the door open. Inside, a man clutches a rifle, fingernails white against the stock. His eyes are wide, wild. He's no pro, just a kid. Tattoos on his forearms, desperation coiling in his posture. He doesn't raise the barrel, but his finger twitches near the trigger. He looks like he regrets it already. I freeze, adrenaline pounding, and Mendoza sweeps in, gun drawn. We surround him, voice calm but assertive. "Put it down. We're here to help." He drops the rifle. It hits the floor with a hollow clatter that echoes like a death knell. He collapses to his knees, tears slipping free, whispering, "They said they'd kill me." I glance around. 3 bodies, 2 men, 1 woman, slumped against opposite walls, eyes vacant. The kid with the rifle swallowed his terror before facing them, turned the gun inward so they'd surrender. It was supposed to be a rescue. Instead, he killed them all. In minutes, the buzzer at dispatch, sounds for backup. Crime scene team, forensics, detectives. I step outside into the alley, lean against cold bricks, and close my eyes. My stomach churns. I didn't see this coming. No de-escalation training covers this. No protocol for a kid with a gun who's done worse than any dealer I've cuffed. My radio crackles again. "Unit 47, you still on site?" I pick up, voice flat. Affirmative. Even now, I can't make the words match what I feel. I stay pressed to the wall until dawn bleeds pale light into the alleyway. I'll never shake the sound of that rifle hitting tile, the rattle of salt and pepper hair as they fell, or the weight of those empty stairs. It was supposed to be a cry for help, and instead became their last moment. When they finally let me go home, I wander into my living room like a ghost. My wife sleeps on the couch, TV murmuring. I sit beside her, hands shaking as I reach for her arm. She stirs half awake. "Long night?" I nod, unable to explain. And as I collapse against her shoulder, I realize the worst call isn't any I've answered. It's the one I had no choice but to take, and the ones that follow me home, replaying until I can't tell the difference between what I did and what I couldn't stop. I didn't sleep long before the radio snapped me back awake. 4:12 a.m. on the dot, the shrill tone slicing through the dark like a warning. I fumbled for the headset, heart already pounding a warning drum in my ears. Possible suspicious package, 129 2nd Street. Caller says it's wrapped in duct tape, ticking faintly. I sat up in bed, sweat cold on my scalp, and realized the night wasn't over yet. I threw on clothes, uniform shirt sticky from the last shift, badge pinning heavy against my chest, and grabbed my coat. My partner, Sergeant Vega, met me in the kitchen, bleary-eyed but alert. "What now?" she asked, voice low. I shrugged, still half convinced it was a prank. We rode the empty avenues together, engine the only sound, until we turned onto 2nd Street. The house was modest, the porch light off, save for a single bulb buzzing overhead. We approached slowly, lights off, each footstep crunching on frost-bitten grass. The caller said they found it on their stoop. No note, nothing but that soft mechanical thump. I gestured to Vega, who nodded, and we fanned out on the porch. The package was there, a small box wrapped haphazardly in gray duct tape, corners fraying where the material pulled. A wire coiled around it, a tiny clock face taped to the top, the hands inching forward at a stubborn pace. I swallowed, radioing for the bomb squad, voice steady despite the adrenaline twisting my gut. "Dispatch, Unit 47, confirming suspicious device at 129 2nd. Stand by for EOD." We backed away, pressing into the shadows, flashlights off. I watched Vega's silhouette tense beside me. We both knew how fast routine could turn catastrophic. The seconds stretched, my breaths loud in my own ears, every muscle primed for the eruption of noise and heat. But nothing happened. The squad arrived in minutes that felt like hours, cordoning off the block. Robots whirring out to examine the device. I leaned against the patrol car, arms crossed, eyes locked on the rover's mechanical claw. When they finally rendered it inert, just a malfunctioning cell phone, battery heating under electrical tape, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. By 5 a.m., the neighborhood was back to its false calm. We packed up, and I tried to file the report, but my fingers shook over the keyboard. I thought of every call I'd answered tonight, the terrified child behind the rose bush, the battered woman in the barricaded apartment, the bullet-scarred walls of that warehouse. And now this, an object that passed for terror until it wasn't. We headed back to the station, the city still half asleep, steam rising off manhole covers like ghosts. I told Vega I needed coffee. She told me she needed mental distance. Neither of us got it. I shut down the cruiser and stepped into the pale light of dawn, the eastern sky bruised purple and gold. Inside dispatch, the neon clock glared 5:47 a.m. The radio was quiet, the final lull before the daylight shift took over. I sank into the chair, muscles loose now, but my mind wound tighter than ever. I keyed the mic for one last status. Unit 47, nightly operations complete. Logs filed. Then I leaned back and closed my eyes, willing the machine's hum to lull me. But instead, I saw that 6-year-old's eyes again, dark and wet. The broken lamp on Wilcox's floor. The boy's phone timer paused on a dozen seconds. The teen's pale hands dropping the rifle. I heard their whispers, their pleas, their final moments unspooling like a reel I couldn't stop. My headset clicked off, and the station's fluorescent lights cast long, sterile shadows. I told myself it was over. The shift had ended. But I knew better. The voices would keep calling me, each memory a ringing echo that wouldn't fade. I stood and stepped outside, the morning chill cutting through my shirt. The city exhaled around me, buses rumbling, shop doors clanging open, life restarting without a backward glance. I walked to my car, each step heavy, and thought about going home, going to sleep. But some part of me knew the night would follow. because the calls aren't done with me, and the last thing I see when I close my eyes is the boy's face lit by that dying clock. My eyes burn as I grind through the reports on my desk. Incident logs, evidence tags, narrative supplements. And despite the dawn light filtering through the blinds, it feels like I'm still deep in the long night. My partner's gone home. The cruiser's parked, still bearing the faint smell of antiseptic and adrenaline. I raise a hand to rub my jaw, even though shifting through paper won't erase what I saw in that warehouse shaft or the barrel of that kid's rifle. Dispatch pings again. This time, just a courtesy check from the day supervisor. I tell her I'm fine, that I'll come in for debrief later, but I don't mention how the walls seem to close in around me or how I've replayed the boy's plea. They said they'd kill me, until it's a broken record in my head. I stand and stretch, joints cracking like old leather, and push my chair back. The bullpen is quiet now, except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant murmur of the morning shift checking in. I gather the 3 rotation binders: missing persons, domestic disturbances, use of force, and heft them under my arm. Each one has my annotations: times, responses, nuances of body language. Each one bears the weight of lives altered or ended. I walk down the corridor toward the locker room, passing portraits of past chiefs and plaques commemorating officers fallen in the line of duty. I pause at a glass case filled with retired badges, recalling how each one once was warm to the touch. Now, those badges lie silent, relics of service. My own badge feels heavier in my pocket than it ever has. In the locker room, I strip off the uniform, the shirt slick with dried sweat, the trousers still carrying the scuff of that warehouse floor. I hang them neatly. For a glance, I want everything to look orderly. I towel off, staring at myself in the mirror. Eyes red-rimmed, skin pale, mouth set in a line I don't recognize. My reflection is hollowed out, as though the night carved something raw from my soul. I leave the station and step onto the sidewalk where the city is waking. Food carts roll out, flowers bloom on corner stands, coffee shops polish their counters. People stroll by with morning purpose: school runners, dog walkers, joggers plugged into headphones. They glance at me with a mild nod, as if they see me but don't know me. They don't know what I carried into that station or what I carry out with me now. My phone buzzes again. This time, a text from the boy's mother, sent through victim services. Thank you doesn't feel like enough. I thumb out a reply. Glad he's safe. Keep us posted. It feels small and hollow compared to the fear I saw in that child's eyes, the anger I saw in the barrel of that rifle. I make my way to the debrief room, where detectives and social workers are gathering around a long table. They've laid out the boy's phone with its cracked screen, the rifle cataloged and wrapped, photos from the apartment walls. I sit in the seat at the head of the table, heart pumping like it did when I first swung that door open. The lead detective, Ramirez, thumbs through my narrative. Your timing was crucial. If you'd come 10 seconds later, cut him off, he'd be dead. My voice is flat, but I taste bile at the back of my throat. The room nods, all too aware of the stakes. We talk procedure, charges, evidence chain, witness statements. But in the back of my mind, all I hear is that radio tone, the beep, beep, beep of a life on hold. After the debrief, I linger in the parking lot, leaning against my cruiser. The sun sweeps across the hood, warming the metal. I close my eyes, picturing the boy's face lit by the clock on that warehouse package. 12 seconds frozen in time. I imagine the bloody blanket on the bed, the shards of glass at Wilcox, the faint piano melody in the empty house. I reach into my pocket and pull out a folded piece of paper, the boy's drawing, delivered by the victim advocate. It's clumsy but heartfelt. A police car with flashing red lights, a smiling stick figure beside another with tears. I keep it folded, knowing I'm supposed to hang it on my locker. But I tuck it into my wallet instead, a secret weight pressing against my ribs. Heading home, I drive through lanes I know like the back of my hand, passing the neon sign of a 24-hour diner where I've eaten too many meals in uniform. I think about stopping in for eggs and coffee, but I can't bear to sit in a booth with others around me talking about weekend plans and weather. The world carries on, and I'm left carrying pieces of it with me. When I pull into my driveway, children's bicycles lie scattered on the lawn across the street. Neighbors' laundry flutters on lines. I step inside my house and flick on the lights. Kitchen, living room, hallway, scattering every shadow. My partner's scarf is draped over the back of the couch. I pick it up, press it to my face. It smells of her, clean linen and warmth. I move through the house methodically, turning off lights, checking locks, drawing the curtains. I don't know why I do it. Maybe it's control. Maybe it's protection. Finally, I step into the bedroom, peel off my pants, pull on sweatpants, slip into bed. My partner is already asleep, her breathing soft and even. I lie beside her, feeling the sheet rustle under my arm. I want to reach out, but my limbs feel heavy, weighted by the night's events. I roll onto my side, keep my back to her so she won't see the tremor in my shoulders. I close my eyes and once again I hear the boy's breath, ragged in the shaft. I see the front door of Wilcox's house swinging open into emptiness. I smell the rusted iron of that warehouse elevator. I taste the stale coffee in the unlit house on Evergreen. My heartbeat thrums in my ears until it drowns out my partner's soft snore. I squeeze my eyes shut tighter, as though I can squeeze out the images clawing their way across my eyelids. Then, in the silence behind my closed lids, I feel it. The persistent tick of that taped clock, the boy's voice echoing in the dark, and a single thought settling like ice in my chest. I can't ever unhear it. I'm back in dispatch before the sun even has a chance to clear its throat. It's 7:03 a.m. when the new call comes in. A panicked voice reporting, someone screaming inside the old mill house up by Cedar Creek. I swallow down the fatigue coil in my gut, grab my coat and race out before the message finishes. The mill house sits abandoned on a gravel rise, its boarded windows like blind eyes. I park at the edge of the overgrown yard, heart rattling in my ribs. I check in on the radio. Unit 47 on scene, investigating possible disturbance at mill house. No backup yet. Everyone's tied up with morning shift turnover. I kick aside weeds and step through a rusted gate that groans like a wounded animal. Inside, the rafters loom overhead, and the only light comes from my flashlight, which slices through swirling dust. The beam catches splashes of old graffiti and piles of collapsed ceiling plaster. Somewhere, deeper in the building, the screaming starts again. Agonized, ragged, as though someone's tearing themselves in half. I follow the sound down a narrow corridor. Each footstep echoes like a ticking clock. At the end, a door hangs off one hinge. I draw my weapon, heart pumping. Police, if you need help, come to the door slowly. The door creaks open as I approach, and I see her. A woman with long, tangled hair, face streaked with ash or soot, eyes frantic. She's wrapped in a filthy sheet, barefoot, and breathing so hard it rattles her chest. I holster my weapon and kneel at the threshold. "Ma'am, I'm here to help. Are you hurt?" She lunges backward, clutching at the wall, voice a strangled whisper. "They're coming for me. They said tonight is the night." She glances over her shoulder, eyes darting into darkness I can't see. I stand and slip inside, flashlight at the ready. The floorboards sag under my weight. Every broken step feels like a trap. "What happened here?" I ask. She wrings her hands. "I came to look for my brother. He worked here last summer. I thought I heard him." She gestures deeper into the mill's guts. I press forward, uneasy. The beam passes over old machinery, rusted gears half buried in refuse, conveyor belts stiff with decay. The air smells of mold and something coppery. Somewhere, water drips without pattern, like tears. The woman trails behind me, murmuring prayers. At the heart of the mill is a cavernous room, once a sorting floor, now littered with pallets and shattered glass. My light falls on a figure hunched beside a broken window. A man in a threadbare jacket, head hanging. He stirs, and I see the sleeve tag on his wrist. Jackson, the same name the woman called. Relief warps to horror when I step closer. His hands are bound with frayed wiring, and blood seeps through his shirt collar. I crouch beside him, checking pulse, weak but there. His eyes flick open, glazed. He whispers, voice raw, "They left me here to die." He coughs. I grip his shoulder. "You're safe now. We'll get you out." I radio dispatch. "Unit 47. Victim located. One male, adult, bound and bleeding. Need paramedics ASAP." The woman slides to her knees, tears soaking the dirt. "Who did this?" she asks, voice trembling. Jackson's hand spasms, reaching for something on the floor. He drags it toward me, a torn scrap of paper with handwriting spidery and frantic. "One night to pay for their sins. Midnight tolls for all." A distant clock tower strikes 8 times, though I know there's no bell here. It thuds through the walls like a warning pulse. I glance at my watch, 7:59 a.m. It's as though the mill itself is counting down. I help Jackson to his feet, supporting his weight as he leans on me. The woman clutches his arm, face pale but determined. I lead them toward the exit, but the beam of my flashlight catches something half hidden, a silhouette against the far wall, too tall, too still to be a beam of shadow. I freeze mid-step. Jackson sees it too. He stumbles, eyes widening. He's here. The figure doesn't move, but I feel its presence, like ice water seeping through my spine. I lift my radio, voice low. "Dispatch, possible suspect inside. I'm extracting victims now. Send units to secure perimeters." The silhouette shifts, and I catch the glint of metal in its hand. A knife blade catching the weak morning light through the boarded window. My grip tightens on Jackson's arm as I half drag, half guide them toward the door. The beam follows us, painting the walls with our shadows. Just as we clear the threshold, a muffled thump echoes behind us. The blade striking wood where my head was seconds before. The door slams shut, cutting us off. I slam my shoulder into the frame, forcing it ajar, and rush inside, adrenaline flaring every sense. The figure is gone. Nothing but empty pallets and that smeared scrap of paper fluttering on the ground. I scoop it up, fingers slick with blood that isn't mine. Jackson staggers, wife gripping him. "They won't stop," he gasps. Outside, sirens wail. Rescue and patrol converging like vultures. As medics rush forward, I hand off Jackson, then stare back at the mill entrance. The tall doorway yawns dark and inviting, as though daring us to return. I turn away, voice hollow when I call back to dispatch. "Unit 47 clear. One suspect escaped. Multiple crime scenes to process." I rub my jaw, tasting grit and fear. The morning air feels too bright, too calm after what we've faced. I watch the paramedics load Jackson into an ambulance, the woman climbing in beside him, clasping his hand. And for a moment, I let myself believe they'll be all right. But I can't shake that final image of the mill's dark throat, the glint of that blade in half-light, and the knowledge that somewhere inside, someone is waiting for midnight's next toll to finish what they started. The sun has fully risen by the time I finally collapse against the hood of my cruiser, uniform soaked with sweat and my sidearm hanging heavy at my hip. The warehouse, the mill, the apartment. Each location replays in my mind like a broken film reel. My radio sits silent against the dashboard. No more calls draining my blood. I lift my head, gaze drifting over the city skyline streaked gold and gray. In the harsh light of day, everything looks ordinary. Commuters pouring onto sidewalks, joggers weaving between trees, the hum of morning traffic. But I know how thin the veil is between that calm and the darkness we stepped into all night. My partner, Sergeant Vega, joins me silently, handing me a paper cup of coffee. Black, just the way I asked, though my hands tremble too much to lift it. She watches me, eyes wary. "You okay?" she asks. I don't answer at first. I finish the coffee in 3 long, cold gulps, feeling each swallow echo in my throat like a reminder I'm still alive. I close my eyes and see her face again. The woman in the sheet, voice shredded. Hear his whisper, "They'll kill me." I taste the acrid smoke in that old mill, feel the pulse of the ticking clock on the duct-taped package, the weight of the boy's broken hands. Vega touches my shoulder. "We'll debrief soon. You need rest." I nod, though I know sleep will evade me. I stand, stretch, and pull my phone from my pocket. There are 20 missed calls. Dispatch, my wife, the station. I ignore them and scroll through the photos I snapped for evidence. The scrap of paper with its final threat, the ruined blanket, the boy's terror-stricken eyes. Each frame is a shard of glass cutting into my mind. I slip the phone away and climb into the cruiser. Vega climbs in beside me. We drive side by side in silence through streets now clogged with morning rush. Every red light feels like a judge's gavel. Every honk a reminder that life goes on. We pass Evergreen Drive, Wilcox Avenue, the warehouse district. All scenes of broken lives tonight. I grip the wheel until my knuckles go white. "Want me to run point on debrief?" I ask, voice gravelly. Vega shakes her head. "You've earned the right to rest. Briefing can wait." I glance at her, gratitude and guilt wrestling in my chest. She's been through her own share of nights like this. Still, something in me clenches. A refusal to let the story end without understanding why it began. We pull into the station garage. The door rumbles shut behind us, and the din of the city fades to a hollow hum. I kill the engine and sit in the dark cabin, breathing shallow. The dashboard clock reads 9:14 a.m. I replay the timeline one last time in my head, searching for the moment I could have changed the outcome, the flicker of choice I missed. Then I shut off the lights and step out. The air in the garage is cool and still, the tiles underfoot stained with traces of oil and bleach. I walk past rows of parked cruisers, each one a potential lifeline or a tomb. My boots echo on concrete until I reach my locker. I unlock it and pull out my bag. Inside, a fresh uniform, a toothbrush, my partner's spare gloves. I pause, hand on the handle, and for an instant consider dropping it all, walking away from the weight of these calls. But I know that I won't. I can't. The city needs responders, people who will chase the echo of a child's scream, who will stand between an unseen threat and the innocent. I step into the locker room, change out of the clothes I've worn through hell, and hang them up. Then I pull from my wallet the crumpled drawing the boy pressed into my hand, a shaky police car and 2 stick figures holding hands. I tuck it into my uniform pocket before slipping my badge back on. It feels heavier than ever before. an anchor and a burden. As I lock the locker and turn toward the exit, my radio crackles to life. Unit 47, we've got a hit and run at 17th and Main. I pause, breath hitching. The city never sleeps, never stops sending its wounded to our door. I lift the mic, send it in. And as I race out into the morning light, I carry with me the echo of that final toll, the boy's last breath, the blades glint in the warehouse, the duct-taped clock winding down, knowing I'll never unhear the ticking that started it all. The cruiser's headlights carve through the gray dawn as I pull up to the intersection of 17th and Main. The sky is just lightening, but the streets hum already with traffic, drivers oblivious to the wreckage ahead. I step out, gravel crunching under my boots, and see the sedan half embedded in the storefront's display window. Hood crumpled like tin foil. Shards of glass litter the pavement, sparkling in the pale light. Officer Chen is already on scene, crouched beside the driver's door, where a man in his 40s lies sprawled across the seat, head lolling, eyes unfocused. His breath comes in jagged bursts. I kneel beside him, fingers pressing against a neck wound that's already darkening. I radio for EMS and fire, then signal Chen to help me ease the seat back to a safer angle. The man grips my sleeve, voice a gravelly whisper. She was right behind me. I glance past the sedan into the store. A woman, late 20s, uniform torn, lies unmoving beneath a pile of shattered mannequins. Blood seeps into her dark hair, pooling on the linoleum floor. I squeeze the driver's hand. Help's coming, I promise, though I don't know if it's enough. Engine noise swells, and I catch the echo of passing horns as traffic backs up. I shout for bystanders to clear a path, but nobody moves fast enough. I peel off my coat and press it to the man's wound, trying to staunch the flow. His eyes flicker, fear mingling with guilt. I didn't see her, he gasps. I thought the light changed. The siren builds to a crescendo, then relief floods me as paramedics skid to a stop. I stand and back away, letting them take over, but my gaze stays on the tangled figures inside the shop. The store owner stands behind the yellow tape, phone pressed to his ear, face ashen. He can't meet my eyes. Chen crouches back down beside me. Unit 47. Drivers showing signs of shock. Bullet points say possible head trauma. Victim in the store. Code red. His voice is quiet, but the weight in it is loud. We move in together, slipping past the store's shattered portal. Inside, the woman's chest rises and falls in shallow jerks. A paramedic kneels beside her, calling out vitals. I check for ID, a name tag half buried in broken glass. Maria Alvarez, medical assistant. I step outside to intercept the tow crew and traffic control. I watch them yank the sedan free, front end groaning under the pull of steel cables. The storefront's display remains ruined, the mannequin's plastic limbs strewn like discarded toys. I close my eyes against the memory of the glass cutting her arm, the way her uniform was soaked through in crimson. Chen joins me at the curb. Hit-and-run suspect spotted on eastbound, he says, tone clipped. Cop car gave chase, lost him at the underpass. I nod, fists clenching. Check the cameras, every street, alley, parking lot. He won't be far. As we gather witness statements, an elderly man who saw the sedan speed off, a jogger who heard the crash before she saw the glass spray, the station calls for an update. I crouch down to the woman's husband, who's just arrived, face white as chalk. He kneels beside her, cries muffled into her hair. I place a hand on his shoulder, unsure if comfort is possible here. Once Maria is loaded into the ambulance, I pause to watch the doors close. The gurneys. Wheels click over tile, then asphalt, fading around the corner. Her husband stands up, chest heaving, then turns to me. His voice cracks. "Please, find him." "I will," I promise, voice steadier than I feel. Back at the corner, I help Chen collect the driver's statements. He's disoriented, reeking of guilt and odor of spilled coffee from his cup in the console. I steady him as he talks, light change, panic, pedal floored. All the while, I note every detail. Skid mark length, dash cam footage needs, plate fragments under the wheel well. Traffic detectives roll in, cordoning the scene. I brief them fast. Victim profiles, suspect vehicle description, last known heading. Then I step aside, letting them take the lead. My body aches. Every muscle drawn tight from the night's strain. I lean against the storefront's still shaking frame, flashlight tucked into my belt. Dawn light filters through ragged blinds in the neighboring shops, painting everything in muted pastels. For a moment, the world is peaceful. Street cleaners around the corner, delivery trucks rumbling in, pedestrians weaving through obstacles. But I know peace is an illusion. I know the detective will track that sedan, bring the driver in, and press charges. They'll interview every witness, sift through video until they find him. The legal system will grind on, but it won't heal Maria's wounds. Won't soothe the husband's grief if she doesn't make it. Chen approaches, handing me a photo of the suspect's face, captured by a neighbor's motion-activated camera. The man's eyes are wide, fear and adrenaline smeared across his features. I study the image, memorizing every line, every tick of panic in his stare. I tuck the photo into my pocket just as the crime scene tape comes down. Traffic reopens. The tow truck hauls the sedan away like a wounded animal. The street resumes its routine hum. I check my watch, 5:58 a.m., 2 minutes till the end of my shift. I radio dispatch for one last update. Unit 47 clear. Suspect photo sent, scene processed. My partner meets me at the cruiser. She hands me a travel mug of coffee, steaming, bitter. I grasp it with both hands, tasting warmth for the first time in hours. She nods, eyes tired but approving. I start the engine, echo of our footsteps fading. Behind us, Main Street gleams in the newborn light. Ahead, the station waits, and with it, the promise of rest, of routine paperwork, of another day. I exhale, and in that exhale is every scream still echoing in my mind. Every flash of the boy's terror and Maria's silent tears. I whisper to no one. I'll carry this until someone remembers me. I slide behind the wheel as the sun peeks over the horizon, the day shift officers filtering into the station like ghosts replacing ghosts. My radio crackles once. Unit 47, clear for Maine, status? I hold the button down, voice tight. Clear and available. I take a breath that catches at memories. Maria's silent form, the boy's pleading eyes, the scrap of paper ticking toward doom, and slam the cruiser into gear. Dispatch steers me toward a new call. A 911 hang-up from Lakeview Park, reported 18 minutes ago. Families should be packing picnic baskets now, not dialing in panic. I flick on lights and siren, heart thudding with that familiar premonition. Lakeview Park is a calm expanse in daylight. Jogging paths, kids swing squeaking in the breeze, ducks drifting in the pond. But the gazebo at its center looms unsettling, half hidden by willow branches. I kill the siren and step out. Patrol boots soft on grass dew, glistening like stolen diamonds. My flashlight, more habit than need, sweeps across the gazebo floor. Empty soda cans, a discarded jacket, footprints pressed into mud. No voices, no children's laughter. Just the faint hum of distant traffic and wind rustling leaves. I radio in, Unit 47 on scene. Lakeview Park gazebo. Checking for 911 Origin dispatch says they have no active line, just the hang-up. I crouch, examine fresh shoe prints that head toward the pond's edge. They're small, child size. I glance down at the water, still and mirror gray. Behind me, a park bench creaks. Someone's hiding there. I whip around, flashlight piercing the shadows to reveal a teenager crouched low, ragged breath puffing in the chill morning air. Her hair is matted, her jeans torn at the knee. She holds something clutched to her chest, a soggy teddy bear, one eye missing. I holster my flashlight, hands raised. It's okay, police. You called 911? She nods, voice breaking. He took it. The park ranger. She points toward the sculpture path. My gaze locks on a figure in uniform, his back turned, walking calmly beside a row of stone markers. Stay here, I tell the girl, kneeling to unwrap the bear. Its stuffing sag stained dark. She watches, tears slipping free. I flick on my radio. Unit 47, adult female victim located. Possible abductor in ranger uniform moving southbound near Sculpture Trail. Suddenly, footsteps crunch. Ranger turns, tall, broad-shouldered, face hidden under his cap's brim. He raises a hand as if waving or warning. He doesn't break stride. I step forward. Hold it right there. Park ranger, police. He freezes for a heartbeat that feels like an hour, then bolts. I sprint after him, feet pounding on gravel, heart hammering. The sculptures, concrete silhouettes of wildlife, loom like sentinels as I chase. He weaves between them, head ducked, shoulders hunched. The pond laps at my left, path narrowing. I radio backup. Suspect in custody, chase in progress, need units at Sculpture Trail. Then I launch myself past the final sculpture, a great heron poised in mid-strike and skidding into the ranger's path. I tackle him low, arms locking around his legs. We crash to the ground, gravel biting through my uniform. He howls, twisting beneath me, the cap flying off to reveal cold eyes and a cruel grin. I press my weight, draw cuffs, and press the stun of authority. You're under arrest. He doesn't resist. His strength drains, replaced by a smirk. You think you saved her? He spits. You have no idea what you're meddling in. I haul him up, cuffs tight on his wrists, and call for a stretcher crew. He's trembling, injured in the tumble. I turn to the girl who stands a few feet away, trembling like a leaf. I cross to her, kneel, and slide an arm around her shoulders. You're safe now, I say. She nods, burying her face in his stained teddy bear. Behind us, dawn light bathes the park. Families arriving for morning walks, joggers weaving through trees. A mother with a toddler glances our way, eyebrows knitting. I raise my free hand in a half wave, half apology, then guide the girl toward the patrol car. I watch the ranger loaded into an ambulance, pale, defeated. He glares at me, lips curling. This isn't over, but I don't answer. I circle back to the gazebo where the bear's pair of missing eye buttons lay in the mud. I pick them up, sticky and cold, and tuck them into my pocket. As I open the cruiser door, the girl slides inside, clutching the bear to her chest. She looks at me and whispers, "Thank you, officer." The words seem too small for what happened, but they're enough. I kneel by the window, voice soft but firm. You were brave. Everything's going to be okay. Her tear-streaked nod feels like a lifeline. I close the door, engine purring to life. As I pull away, the pond's surface shimmers behind me, reflecting dawn's first rays. I thumb the bear's eye buttons in my pocket, weighty reminders of the night's toll and the day's fragile dawn. And I know that as long as I'm out here answering calls, I'll carry every piece of their stories home, with me, until I'm called out again. I clipped the mic to my uniform pocket at exactly 10 p.m., the clock on the dispatch console glowing 2200 in harsh red digits. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, leaving the pavement slick and pockets of fog drifting between street lamps like silent ghosts. My cruiser, call sign Echo 12, rolled onto Crestview Boulevard, tires whispering against the wet asphalt. I felt the familiar weight settle in my chest. It's beginning. The first tone came through at 22:07. Priority 3, dispatch crackled. Possible welfare check, 1457 Elmwood Drive. Caller reports screaming and crashing noises. No other details. I eased the cruiser into the driveway of a single-story ranch house, its white siding stained by years of storms. The front yard grass was overgrown, slick with dew. I cut the engine, the sudden silence almost louder than the storm had been. Reaching for my flashlight and holstered sidearm, I radioed in. Echo 12 on scene at Elmwood. Checking for disturbance. My partner, Officer Dana Reyes, sat beside me, jaw set tight. We'd worked graveyard shifts together for 4 years, long enough to know that welfare check often meant something darker. We stepped through the front gate, boots crunching on gravel. The front door was ajar, swinging gently inward on squeaking hinges. I paused, hand on the frame, listening. From inside came the muffled thud of something heavy hitting a wall, followed by a shriek so raw it clawed at my gut. I squeezed Reyes's shoulder, a signal to move in. We breached silently, lights slicing through the dim hallway. The living room looked like a hurricane zone. A coffee table shattered, porcelain shards kettle scattered across the rug. Couch cushions ripped open, foam oozing like pale blood. On the far wall, the flat-screen TV lay face down, its stand snapped in two. The air smelled of stale beer and fear. My radio lit up. Back up en route. ETA 3 minutes. Then we heard it again. A low, keening cry from the kitchen. We edged forward, senses on fire. The kitchen was half lit by a single overhead bulb, swinging as if tacked by ghostly fingers. Pots clanged in the sink. A drawer yanked open. And there, hunched over the counter, was a man. Mid-30s, dark hair matted, eyes wild. His hands were smeared, crimson, showing fresh cuts he wasn't bleeding from. He spun at our entrance, face contorting into something unhinged. "Get back!" he screamed, voice hoarse. He grabbed a butcher knife from the counter, holding it like a weapon, and almost dropping it, as if his grip wavered between madness and regret. I froze for a heartbeat, just enough time for Reyes to draw her taser. She aimed, charged, and fired. The darts embedded in his shoulder, and he convulsed, knife clattering to the floor. He slumped against the fridge, chest heaving. I holstered my firearm and approached, flashlight trained on his face. Sweat beaded on his brow, mingling with streaks of dried blood. I asked softly, "Sir, are you hurt? What happened here?" His eyes darted to the sink, where I now saw splatters of something too dark to be water. Before I could register it, a thin voice called from behind me. I turned to see a young woman, early 20s, trembling in the doorway, one hand pressed over her mouth. Tears glistened on her cheeks. I called 911, she stammered. He wouldn't stop." Her voice broke, and she collapsed against the frame. Reyes rushed to her side, guiding her to a chair, wrapping her in a borrowed jacket. I radioed EMS. EMT to Elmwood Kitchen. Adult male in custody, one female in emotional distress, possible exposure to bloodborne pathogens. The dispatcher acknowledged. I turned back to the man, whose muscles twitched even in taser-induced paralysis. I cuffed him carefully, ignoring the residual sparks flickering from the darts. As the paramedics wheeled the young woman out on a stretcher, wrapped in blankets, clutching Reyes's hand, my flashlight beam caught the corner of the counter. A small, blood-soaked teddy bear lay face down, its ear torn. My throat tightened. That detail stuck with me more than the knife or the shattered TV. Something about that bear whispered of innocence lost and violence too close to home. I left the suspect for Detectives Durant and Morris, stragglers who'd just arrived in cruisers behind us, their lights painting the walls in strobing blues and reds. Reyes and I retreated to our cruiser at 2245. She lit a cigarette, something she otherwise never did on duty. I watched her exhale a thin line of smoke into the mist, the ember bright in the gloom. We recorded the call in the log, 2207 to 2237. Welfare check, domestic disturbance turned assault. Juvenile not located, suspect detained. Victim transported by EMS to St. Anne's. Procedural notes. But I stared at the line about juvenile not located. No child, no bear, only questions. The silence in the cruiser settled back in as we moved on to the next dispatch. Somewhere between Elmwood and the diner off Route 9, I felt a tremor beneath my chest, like the echo of that bear's muffled cry. I shook it off, adjusting my radio volume as the dispatcher called in the next job. But I knew, even then, that tonight wouldn't let me forget. I clipped my mic back onto the chest rig as Reyes shut the cruiser door, the damp night air pressing against us like a second uniform. Our tail lights receded into streaks of red on Elmwood Drive as we headed for the diner on the outskirts of town. Route 9. Diner, open all night, the one place with coffee strong enough to sear memories clean. By 2302, we slid into a booth. The vinyl bench squeaked beneath us. The waitress, heavy-lidded and rubbing her temples, set down 2 steaming mugs without asking. I'd already barked black 2 creams into the order screen. She knew the drill. Outside the diner's fogged window, headlights from distant cars sliced through the mist. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The acrid tang of bleach and grease clung to the air, and the scent of frying bacon drifted past. I lifted my mug, burned my lip on the first sip, and closed my eyes for a moment. Reyes dug a pack of cigarettes from her coat pocket, tapping one free, lighting it deftly. The ember glowed bright as she inhaled. I hated that she smoked, but who was I to judge? This shift had already bled us dry. At 2327, my radio sparked. Echo 12, Priority 2, dispatch crackled. Suspicious persons loitering at Crestwood Industrial Park. Building 4. Reports of yelling, possible break-in. I set down my mug. The waitress hovered, eyes flicking between me and Reyes. We shrugged apologetically, grabbed our gear and headed back to the cruiser. The night had settled deeper. The mist felt wetter, clinging to our jackets. We pulled into the gravel lot of the old industrial park by 2335. Towering warehouses loomed like silent sentinels, windows dark or shattered, concrete walls streaked with rust and graffiti. As we strobed through the lot, our headlights revealed discarded pallets and half-buried engines, remnants of small-time scrappers who treated the place like a playground. I edged past a stack of old oil drums and heard the echo of raised voices, a woman's clear cry and a male voice snarling something unintelligible. I hit the PA. "Police, show yourselves." My words bounced down the corridor of loading docks. A flicker of motion to our left, between 2 concrete pillars. Reyes drew her taser again. I thumbed the flashlight high beam, sweeping until I caught 3 figures. One man shoved a woman against the cold metal siding. Her arms flailed, voice rising to a shrill panic. Another man crouched low, seemed to be rifling through a battered toolbox. I sprinted forward, heart hammering, shouting, "Get down! Move away from her!" The assailant's head snapped toward me. Rage twisted his features. He pushed the woman to the ground and stumbled to his feet. One hand balled into a fist. The second man dropped the toolbox and raised his empty hands. The woman scrambled backward, clothing torn. I radioed it in. Assault in progress at IP4. 2 suspects, 1 victim on ground. My voice was steady, but my insides felt like boiling oil. Reyes deployed her taser at the man nearest, hitting him in the thigh. He thudded, fumbling to the concrete, muscles twitching. The other suspect paused, eyes flitting between us, the fallen comrade and the terrified woman. He weighed his options, fight or flight, and chose the latter, darting toward a chain-link fence. I drew my firearm, aiming low. "Don't move," I yelled. He froze, then bolted. I fired a warning shot into the pavement, ringing steel on concrete. He skidded to a halt, arms raised in surrender. Within seconds, backup cruisers arrived, lights painting the warehouse in strobing red and blue. 2 uniformed officers cuffed the first suspect still writhing under the darts. The fleeing man was already on his knees, head bowed. Reyes knelt beside the victim, a young woman, mid-20s, skirt stained and face pale. She curled into herself, shaking. I kept my gun trained on the kneeling suspect until handcuffs clicked around his wrists, then holstered. She didn't speak. Her body trembled like a reed in a storm. I offered water from a bottle Reyes produced. Her lips parted for a sip, eyes glassy. I glanced at Reyes, whose cigarette glowed in her fingers. "You okay?" I asked the suspect as an officer led him away. He shrugged, muttering. "We thought she was part of some crew. The boss said she had info." His voice trailed off. I didn't press. Tonight, motives felt as twisted as the cold steel rails beneath our feet. By 0002, we were back on the road. Reyes winding down her cigarette as the last embers glowed. I watched her through the rearview mirror. She exhaled smoke that drifted across her shoulder, merging with the fog outside. I switched back to coffee, iced this time, from the cooler in the cruiser. The shock of cold helped clear my mind. We'd answered 2 calls in under 2 hours, and I could feel the tension tightening in my jaw. At 0015, dispatch came alive again. Echo 12 and any available units, we have a possible multi-car collision with injuries reported on Highway 72, mile marker 18 northbound. Please respond code 2. No sirens this time, lights only. The highway was a ribbon of black with occasional reflectors guiding the way. We joined a line of flashing lights steering traffic off onto a shoulder painted with orange flares. The scene unfolded like a nightmare. 2 cars, a pickup and a sedan, both mangled beyond recognition. The pickup's front end was crumpled against a guardrail, its driver still inside. The sedan spun across lanes, resting on the shoulder. I parked behind the tow truck, grabbed my medical kit, and sprinted across the median. The crushed vehicles reeked of gasoline and fear. Foam from the fire extinguisher coated the pavement. The pickup's driver, a middle-aged man, sat upright, but blood trickled from his temple. I pressed gauzed cheek, spoke softly. "Stay with me, sir. Medics are 10 seconds out." His eyes fluttered, pain and confusion. Beside him, a young boy, maybe 10, sat in the back seat, legs dangling, eyes red. His hands were pressed to his mouth, silent sobbing. I crouched, offering my flashlight so he could see me. "Hey, bud, it's okay. You're safe now. We've got you." He nodded, tears carving trails through dust on his cheeks. The sedan's passenger door was pinned. I heard her moan. Reyes joined me, cutting away metal with the jaws of life. I checked her pulse, rapid but steady. She gripped my wrist with surprising strength. "My sister," she gasped. "She's—" The rest of her sentence broke on a sob. By 0040, paramedics loaded both drivers onto stretchers, securing them with boards and straps. I stayed with the boy, offering him reassurance until a social worker arrived. His small hand wrapped around my finger, weightier than any baton. I radioed the clearance. Scene clear, 2 patients en route, vehicles towed. The highway lights faded in my rearview mirror as we pulled away. There was a lull in calls between 1 a.m. and 1 a.m. 23. I used it to log the collision. 0015 to 0042, MBC, northbound Highway 72. 2 patients transported to Mercy General. Child passenger released to social services. Tow on scene. I paused before hitting send, thinking of the boy's tears and the girl pinned in the sedan. Guilt fluttered in my gut. This was routine, procedural, but to them it was an eternity of terror. At 1:23, dispatch crackled. Possible break-in in progress, 3 Pine Lane, apartment complex. Tenant heard glass breaking. We peeled out, siren muted. Pine Lane apartments were old, narrow corridors dimly lit by flickering bulbs. We passed door after door until a shard of light flickered beneath a cracked-open entrance at Unit 4B. We announced our presence, keys at the ready. No answer. I pried the door. It swung inward on a groan. The living room light was on, overhead fixtures swinging gently. Furniture moved. Someone had been here. The sound of running water drew us toward the bathroom. The door was ajar. Inside I found a man, late 20s, kneeling by the sink, hands under running tap. He spun, eyes wide, soap lather running down wrists. "Stay there," Reyes shouted. The man froze, then bolted past us into the hallway. I lurched forward, catching his arm. He yanked my uniform, ripping a seam. I elbowed him in the side. He staggered. Reyes cuffed him. We escorted him back into the apartment. On the counter lay shards of broken glass. A sliding patio door shattered. He stuttered. I thought it was unlocked. His eyes kept drifting to a small table where pictures lay face down. Family snapshots, a toddler's drawing. I radioed the break-in logs. Suspect detained. No victim present. Possible mistaken address. The man slumped, head in hands. I felt a surge of pity, an irony so sharp it cut. Protective instinct warred with procedural duty. We turned him over to detectives, locked door behind us. By 2:04, Reyes and I were back on the boulevard, lights off, the cruiser humming and idle. I poured the last of the iced coffee down my throat. The caffeine buzzed, but exhaustion crept onward like a tide. We'd already been over 2 hours non-stop. 4 calls answered, lives tangled up in our logs. Reyes exhaled, stubbing her cigarette in the cup holder. "One more," she said, "then station for restock." I nodded. As we turned the corner onto Crestview, the fog thickened. Streetlights dim, the world drained of color. My radio woke again at 2:15. Echo 12, shots fired, 89 Maplewood Court. Possible active shooter. The words felt radioactive. Shots fired. I swallowed hard, thumb hovering above my pistol. Reyes hit the siren. We raced toward the scream I could already feel in my bones. A scream this night had been saving for last. The siren's wail cut through the fog-choked streets as we barreled toward Maplewood Court. By the time we rounded the corner at 2:17 a.m., we could see the spray of red and blue lights throwing long shadows across manicured lawns. A single-story ranch house at number 89 sat at the end of the cul-de-sac. Its front display window shattered, the porch light swinging on a torn wire. I felt my pulse drum in my ears. I killed the siren and crept forward. Reyes at my side with her taser drawn. The night was thick with tension, heavy as wet blankets laying across our shoulders. Inside the front room, lamp bulbs flickered, revealing overturned furniture. The coffee table split, magazines strewn like grim confetti, a wooden rocking chair lying on its back. The walls were painted a pale gray, now mottled with dark smears I refused to identify. A voice trembled from the kitchen, soft, urgent, a woman's voice. We exchanged a glance, then moved in, side by side. The hallway was narrow, the carpet stained, the walls lined with family photos, smiling faces frozen in happier times. I paused before a frame showing a couple in wedding attire. Something brittle cracked inside me. There was no time. At the kitchen entrance, the scene twisted my stomach. A middle-aged man, scruffy beard, cheap flannel, stood over a woman slumped against the counter. Her eyes were half open, and a dark trickle slid from the corner of her mouth. The man's hand gripped a pistol, barrel pointed at his own temple. His other hand was stained. I couldn't tell if it was his sweat or hers. We froze. He froze too, tension crackling like static. I called out, "Police, lower the weapon." My voice felt distant, swallowed by the thick air. The man's eyes darted, first to me, then to Reyes, then back to the woman. He took a shuddering breath, tears streaming down his cheeks. She won't wake up," he said, voice cracking like old glass. I can't fix this." His free hand slid along the countertop, trailing across spilled wine and broken glass. I edged forward, keeping my gun low. "Sir, tell me what happened," I said gently, survival training mixing with every human instinct I had. He flinched at each word, fingers twitching around the pistol grip. "My wife, Anna, she had a seizure," he rasped. "I found her like this. I didn't know what to do." Reyes reached for her radio, but I shook my head. One misstep and he might pull the trigger. Time stretched. A drawn-out sigh as we stared at each other. The dull hum of the refrigerator seemed loud, the only heartbeat in a house full of grief. I lowered my weapon. "Sir, we can help. Put the gun down. It's going to be okay." My words felt like crosses of glass, sharp, uncertain. He shook his head violently. "She's gone," he whispered, voice hollow. His thumb flicked on the safety. The metallic click resonated in my chest. I lunged forward, adrenaline jolting my limbs. My boot caught on a shard of glass. I stumbled, losing momentum. At that instant, he raised the pistol. I heard Reyes yell, "Taser!" simultaneously with a crackle and whistle. The man convulsed, pistol skittering across the linoleum. I dove, grabbing his arm as he jerked, dumping both of us to the floor. Reyes was on him instantly, cuffs snapping around his wrists. I rolled over, heart pounding so loud I felt it in my throat. The woman lay motionless on the counter, skin ashen. I scrambled up and slid against the wall, breathing deep gulps. I checked the pistol, one round still in the chamber. I closed my eyes, exhaling. "EMS to 89 Maplewood," I said into the radio. "Male suspect down, taser, darts to remove. Female victim unresponsive at the scene." My voice was steady, but my hands trembled. I approached the woman slowly. Anna, I learned later. I placed my hand over her wrist, no pulse. I covered my mouth with my free hand to muffle the sob that threatened. Reyes hovered behind me, eyes shadowed. The coroner arrived by 2:45. I stood by outside under the yellow crime scene tape, listening as they wheeled Anna's body from the house on a white sheet. The scene techs whirled around, photographing every shard of glass, every blood spatters on the counter. I watched the man, Anna's husband, led away in the back of a cruiser, his gaze empty, mouth moving in silent prayer or plea, I couldn't tell which. By 3:12 a.m., the scene was clear. I handed over my statement to Detective Chen, wiping rain-slick hair from my face. The cul-de-sac, once a sleepy pocket of suburbia, felt like a mausoleum. Every house around us was dark, no lights gone on in windows. The neighbors watched from porches, teary-eyed, clutching blankets. Back in the cruiser, Reyes flicked off her taser. "Jesus," she muttered, exhaling smoke from an imaginary cigarette. What the hell was that? I sank into the seat, staring at the windshield where raindrops still clung. "A family torn apart," I said, voice low. "And me," I held death's invitation in my hands. We drove on, the dashboard clock reading 3:20. The radio was silent except for distant dispatch signaling routine traffic. I sipped lukewarm coffee, feeling its lifeless heat burn down my throat. 4 calls ago, I thought the shift would end quietly. Now I carried blood on my boots and grief in my gut. And yet, 3 more calls remained before dawn, each one waiting to carve its own scar into the night, and into me. I pulled out of the cul-de-sac behind Reyes, the cruiser's tires hissing on wet pavement as we left Maplewood Court behind. The dashboard clock glowed 3:20. My ribcage felt hollow, like I'd left a piece of myself at Anna's counter. Reyes punched the defogger button, and steam blurred the windshield as rain began to fall again. We both sat in silence until dispatch crackled. Echo 12, priority 3, hang up, 911 call, no location, silent line. I loosened my tie, knuckles whitening on the wheel. "Silent 911s are bad news," I muttered. Reyes nodded, flipping on the overhead lights to alert other units. We rerouted toward the dispatcher's ping, an approximate latitude and longitude in a neighborhood called Crestwood Terrace, an area of narrow streets and row houses. GPS said 2 minutes. By 3:28, we eased onto Maplewood Street, then turned onto Stonebridge Avenue. The row houses were dark, their front doors battened up for the night. A single street lamp cast a yellow halo over a patch of grass. I hit the PA. "Anyone in the area hearing noise?" Just static. We killed the PA and got out, flashlights in hand, moving door to door. At 3:32, a man in pajamas answered his peephole. "Sorry, officers, nothing here," he said, blinking against the beam. "No callers anywhere." Reyes frowned. "Hang up, no callbacks, no traces. Could be accidental pocket dial, but we check." I radioed, "Clear here," and we kept moving until number 17, a sidewalk lined with weeds and an unlocked basement window. I crouched, trained my beam inside. Concrete steps led down to a subterranean hallway barely wide enough to squeeze through. A faint groan echoed. I glanced at Reyes. "Suit up." She dropped her flashlight to arm's reach and flipped on her baton. I unholstered mine. We descended. Damp walls dripped water. The air stank of mold and rot. At the bottom, the basement opened into a storage area. Dusty boxes, old furniture, half-broken appliances. Somewhere in those shadows was a sound, an agitated breath. We advanced, weapons low but ready. As the beam passed over a cardboard box, it fell over with a thud. Out tumbled a teenage boy, barefoot, clothes torn, thin as a rail. He collapsed forward, arms bracing on the cold concrete floor. I knelt beside him, shining my light into his face. Hollow eyes, dried blood along a cut on his forehead. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. "It's the police. You okay?" His breath hitched. He tried to speak, but blood bubbled on his lips. Reyes radioed for EMS, echoing our location, basement of 17 Stonebridge Avenue. The boy tried to sit up. I gently held him down. Easy. Paramedics are coming. I tore a strip of my uniform shirt to cover his forehead wound. He closed his eyes, trembling. They... His voice came in rasps. I leaned closer. Who did this? He shook his head, tears falling. I don't remember. His body convulsed. I smoothed his hair away. Every instinct screamed that he'd been tortured or run, but we were detectives' territory. My job: secure, preserve, report. By 3:45, medics arrived, lifting him onto a stretcher. I held his hand until he drifted away, then rose as Reyes sealed the basement window. I noted the broken handle and the footprint patterns in the dirt. Someone forced their way in, she said, scanning the walls. I nodded. Lucky we found him when we did. Back in the cruiser at 3:50 a.m., I logged 3:28 to 3:45. Silent 911, hang-up, traced to Crestwood Terrace. Male juvenile discovered unconscious in unlocked basement. Possible assault. EMS to St. Jude's. Evidence. Forced entry to residence. My hands trembled as I typed. The coffee from earlier had worn off hours ago. I stole a look at Reyes. She flicked her eyes up from the recorder. Next. Dispatch called immediately. Echo 12, Priority 1, Domestic Disturbance, 204 Brighton Lane. Screaming and crashing. My chest tightened. 2 calls back to back, no break. I engaged lights, eased onto Brighton Lane. Another cluster of row houses, porch lights on this time. A woman's sob broke through the static of the cruiser speakers. We parked at house 204. No siren, you never scare victims. I cracked the passenger door and slipped out. Reyes joined me. We approached the front door. The sounds came from inside, a child's scream, then a thunderous crash. I knocked, announcing, "Police." My boots sank into soggy mulch under a dull porch light. Door swung open at my knock, revealing a teenage girl, mascara running, eyes red. She froze when she saw our badges. He's hurting her," she stammered, pointing past her shoulder. We rushed in. Inside, the living room was chaos. Picture frames shattered, lamps thrown. In the center, a man, late 40s, broad shoulders, raised his hand above a crumpled figure. His wife pressed against a bookshelf. I shouted, "Drop your hand!" Reyes positioned herself at his side, taser drawn. His hand froze in midair. He stared at us, breathing ragged. She took my meds," he said, voice quivering. I wasn't thinking." I advanced slowly. "Sir, step away." He backed off, eyes darting. The wife slumped to the floor, clutching her arm, skin reddened in a bruise pattern. I crouched beside her. "Ma'am, are you okay?" She shook her head, tears falling silent trails. I pressed my flashlight to inspect the bruise, swollen, angry. I motioned Reyes to get her a blanket. Reyes called it in. Domestic assault in progress. Adult female victim with visible injuries, suspect calm, compliant. I turned back to him. "Sir, you need to come with us." He let out a long breath, handcuffs clicking into place. I guided him outside as his daughter wrapped her mother in an old quilt. She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Will she be okay?" I knelt, voice gentle. "She's safe now. We'll get her to a doctor. You'll have her back." I stamped down notes in the log at 0415. 0401 to 04012. Domestic dispute at Brighton Lane. Female assaulted by spouse. Child witness present. Suspect detained. Victim transported to county hospital. Each word felt like we were etching wounds onto paper. We returned to the cruiser. The night was eerily still. Rain had stopped again, leaving the air cold. I scrolled through the calls. 4 down, 3 to go. My mind replayed the boy in the basement, the wife on the floor, the daughter's eyes. Moral compromise weighed on me, When helping hurt people become routine, what happens to the heart? At 4:27, dispatch cut through my thoughts. Echo 12, Priority 2, report of trespassers in the old Milligan warehouse. Nearby, officer already on scene. A warehouse, an echo of our earlier industrial park call. My stomach twisted. Send a unit to assist, I replied, flipping into drive. Reyes rubbed her temples, exhaustion seeping into her bones. We arrived at the warehouse, shadows looming, the building half lit by street lamps. An officer waved us in. 2 teenagers, caught rummaging through crates, sat cuffed on the cold cement floor. They were soaked, trembling. One clutched a ratty backpack, the other shivered in an oversized hoodie. "Curfew?" I asked. The older kid, about 17, shrugged. "We were just exploring," he mumbled. The younger, 14 or so, stared at the floor. The officer found broken glass by the loading bay door. They kicked it open. Reyes scanned the area. No victims, no property of value reported stolen. I holstered my weapon. "Parents will pick them up in the morning," I said, voice uneasy. "You should have better company than an abandoned warehouse." The teens nodded, silent. The officer uncuffed them, handing them off to juvenile services. Back at the cruiser at 04:45, I typed 04:27 to 04:40. Trespassers detained at Milligan warehouse. 2 juveniles, no injuries, turned over to JSO. The click of the keys echoed. This had felt small compared to the violence, but it still gnawed. The clock ticked 5:02 when dispatch piped up. Echo 12, last call. Possible overdose at 319 Parkview Drive. Caller reports unresponsive female inside. Parkview was where I lived as a rookie. Memories flickered. First training drills, fumbling with radio codes. I swallowed. "En route," I said, voice hollow. We sped through the fog, arriving at Parkview Drive just after 5:10. A modest 2-story home, front porch light ablaze. Neighbors whispered from behind curtains. I knocked, announced, "Police and EMS." No answer. Reyes raised her flashlight at a side window. She knocked. The doorknob rattled. We entered, calling through the halls. In the living room lay a woman, mid-30s, on her back, arms splayed, breathing shallow. Pill bottles scattered across the coffee table. I checked her pulse. Slow, erratic. Reyes flagged the EMS techs entering behind us. "Possible OD," she called. I cleared bystanders back as medics administered Narcan. The woman's chest rose violently, then steadied. She coughed, eyes rolling back. I knelt, holding her hand. "You're safe," I whispered. "You're okay." A single tear rolled down her cheek as she grabbed my finger. By 5:25, she was conscious, though groggy. She shoved the bottles away. "Please, don't let me die," she croaked. I squeezed her hand. "You did good calling 911, I assured. I scanned the table, empty pill vials. A note scrawled in messy handwriting. Paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher. As they wheeled her out, she reached up and touched my cheek, an unsteady gesture of gratitude. I blinked back the lump in my throat. At 5:40, I logged 0502 to 0527. Possible overdose at Parkview Drive. Female adult unresponsive. EMS administered naloxone. Patient revived and transported to County Medical. The night had collapsed into reports. 7 calls, 7 wounds. I stared at the clock. 5:45. The shift would end in 15 minutes. Reyes and I sat in the cruiser, quiet. The dash clock ticked down, the radio settling into static. I exhaled, hands shaking on the wheel. "Almost done," I said. My voice was a whisper. Reyes nodded, eyes distant. We'd walked through fires, assaults, crashes, despair. 7 sections of a night no one would believe, each raw and unrelenting. As dawn's pale light seeped through the windshield, I realized, no matter how many reports I filed, nothing could capture the weight of what I carried home. And that final ache, etched into my bones, would replay every time I heard a scream in the dark. The sun's first pale fingers had not yet touched the horizon when we rolled toward the final call. The cruiser's dashboard clock read 5:50 a.m., and the sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the promise of dawn. My eyes felt gritty. Each mile marker passed added weight to my lids, but training kept me alert. Reyes sat beside me, tapping her gloved fingers against the door panel, the only movement in her rigid posture. We'd agreed, without words, that this shift would end only when it was over. Dispatch cracked through the static at 05:53. Echo 12, Priority 1. Possible armed robbery in progress. Pinecrest Bank, 402 Oak Ridge Plaza. Multiple 911 hang-ups from inside. Caller sounds frantic, unable to speak. My heart lurched. A bank call in the last minutes of shift. Every nightmare condensed to a single address. I flicked on the overheads and Reyes locked her door. The streets of Crestwood were quiet now. Storefronts shuttered. Intersections still damp from last night's rain. At 5:57, we turned off Oak Ridge Drive onto the plaza entrance. Through our windshield, the bank's neon sign glowed faintly. Pinecrest Bank, 24/7 ATM. But the doors were locked, windows dark except for the interior lights. A lone security camera lens tilted in our direction. We parked behind the customer drop-box kiosk. No civilians loitered. The parking lot was empty. I grabbed my radio mic. Echo 12 on scene. No visual sign of disturbance. My voice felt brittle. Reyes and I dashed toward the entrance. My boots slapped concrete. The plaza's automatic doors chimed open in my wake. Inside, the lobby lights were bright suicide white, casting every corner in clinical clarity. Marble floors gleamed despite a fresh ring of footprints in the dust. The silence pressed against my eardrums. "Police!" I shouted, sweeping my flashlight across the row of teller windows. They were dark, glass panels unbroken but smeared with fingerprints. Behind me, Reyes cleared her throat, letting the scanner feed in on Channel 2. No response yet. Just the distant hum of the building's air handler. I signaled Reyes to flank left while I hugged the right wall, flashlight beam carving a path through polished emptiness. As we passed the customer service desks, my beam caught a pile of money strapped with rubber bands, fanned across the floor. Wads of 20s and 50s. Next to it, a dropped mask stained with drops of blood. My pulse hammered as I realized we were the interlopers stepping into someone else's chaos. I radioed the detail. Cash on floor, possible suspect remains inside. My throat tightened. Reyes clicked back, proceeding to vault area. We followed footprints leading toward the back corridor. Service doors labeled Employees Only and Vault Access. The latter stood ajar, revealing a sliver of hallway dimmed by emergency lights. I advanced first. Firearm low, senses flared. The hallway walls were reinforced steel, painted institutional gray. At the end, 2 sets of double doors, small windows revealing flickering red lights inside. Vault cameras, dead, one lens cracked. Suddenly, the overhead emergency lights sputtered and went out, plunging us into darkness punctuated only by our flashlights. I felt pressure in the air, raw, dangerous. Then, from within the vault room, a stifled shout, "Don't come in, I'll shoot." My grip tightened. I pressed my shoulder against the door, flashlight hand rattling. "Open the doors! "Drop the weapon!" I barked. No movement, my breath fogged in the chill air. Then a single gunshot rang, deafening in the enclosed steel chamber. The round tore a chunk from the doorframe above my head. Splinters of metal sprayed my helmet. I ducked instinctively, adrenaline surging. "Reyes, stack up!" I yelled. She was at my side in an instant. We kicked in the doors together. The vault room burst into view. A low-ceilinged chamber lined with safety deposit boxes. In the center, crouched behind a thick metal table, stood a man in dark clothes, mask half torn, pistol raised. His posture was tense, bone-white knuckles tight on the grip. At his feet lay two hostages, a young teller, hands twisted behind her back, and a jittery patron, eyes wide with terror. We advanced in unison, loud and commanding. "Drop it!" My voice echoed off steel walls. The robber's head snapped up. For a heartbeat, he wavered. His jaw clenched as he turned the pistol toward his first hostage. I lunged, driving my shoulder into the table. The barrel swung free. Reyes unleashed her taser with practiced aim, striking him in the chest. The shockwave jerked him backward. He dropped the gun. Reyes subdued him, cuffs clicking. I knelt beside the teller, ripping her bonds. She collapsed into my arms, trembling. "It's okay," I said, voice gentle, despite the gunpowder stench. The patron sank to the floor, sobbing. Echo 12 called in. "Control, suspect detained, hostages safe, requesting EMS and bomb squad clearance." Outside the vault, red and blue lights painted rotating patterns on the lobby walls. Dispatch announced SWAT's arrival in 4 minutes. Detectives Kaplan and Ortiz moved in through the front entrance. I escorted the bloodless robber out, watching his eyes, vacant, calculating. He spat on the floor, angry that his night had ended here. By 6:15 a.m., the plaza had filled with responding units. Forensic techs dusting for prints, crime scene tape cordoning off teller stations, bomb squad drones scanning vents. The early commuters waited curbside, phones raised, capturing the aftermath. I stood to the side, soaked in fluorescent sodium light. My uniform was grimy, pistol still warm. I reported the final logs. 0553 to 0610, armed robbery in progress at Pinecrest Bank. 1 suspect detained, hostages, teller, patron, rescued unharmed. Evidence, firearm, mask, ransom notes, cash recovered. I handed over my statement to Detective Kaplan, noting the memory of the shout before the shot, the raw fear in the vault room. As the sun's first rays crept over the plaza edge, I felt a tremor. Not in the ground, but in my bones. 7 calls, 7 scenes, a battered toddler, a domestic abduction, a multi-car crash, a silent basement rescue, a bruised wife, a near-fatal overdose, and now this. Hostages trapped in steel in desperation. I turned to Reyes, voice hushed. "We did all we could." She nodded, shoulders sagging. The dawn washed away the neon bank sign, leaving only questions. How many pieces of ourselves had we left behind? And when the world awoke to morning, coffee and traffic, would they see us as heroes, or as people who carried the night home in our bones? I exhaled, the final tremor passing through me, a quiet, devastating realization that every story we answered would replay in the hollow spaces of our minds, unbidden, until we learned to forgive ourselves for surviving. The early morning sky bled pale gold as we left Pinecrest Bank behind, the heat of adrenaline still pulsing in my veins. The cruiser's clock ticked 6:20 a.m., 2 minutes past shift's end. Neither Reyes nor I spoke. Exhaustion had hollowed out our throats. I guided the cruiser onto Crestview Boulevard, windows down, the cool air washing over us in welcome relief. We pulled into the precinct parking lot beneath flickering sodium lights. The lot was nearly empty. Only patrol and unmarked vehicles lingered before the day's shift change. I killed the engine and sat for a moment, staring straight ahead at the cracked asphalt. Each crack a reminder of the decisions and fractures that night had carved into my mind. Reyes exhaled, brushing a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "That's 7, she said, voice soft. "We made it." I nodded, but my chest felt heavy, as though every call, every scream and sob had planted a weight I could never lift. We climbed out, shoulders slumped, boots crunching gravel as we walked toward the station doors. The air smelled of fresh coffee and printer ink drifting from the briefing room. Day shift officers filed in, bright-faced and alert, talking about heat waves and traffic backups, unaware of the horrors we'd carried through the dark. At the locker room, I peeled off my soaked uniform and shoved it into the bin. The badge, still warm from my chest, caught light for a moment as I unclipped it. A cold metal disc that felt heavier than when I'd pinned it on 12 hours earlier. I caught my reflection in the locker's polished steel door. Haunted eyes rimmed red, stubble dusted with the night's dust, shoulders stooped as though I carried an invisible load. Reyes came up beside me, drying her face with a towel. "Got a minute?" she asked. I met her gaze, both of us understanding that this wasn't a shift you just shrugged off. We needed to acknowledge it. I nodded and led her into the small briefing room, its fluorescent lights humming overhead. We sat at a table strewn with empty coffee cups. I closed my eyes, letting the silence stretch. "You all right?" Reyes asked, voice careful. I exhaled slowly. "I replay that bank call," I said, tone low. That moment before the shot, when he shouted, "Don't come in," it's like I can still hear every echo. My hands trembled as I clasped them together. She reached across, placing her hand over mine. "Me too," she admitted. "And the kid in the basement, no memory. He didn't even know his name." "God," her voice cracked. We sat together in that quiet room, two officers weathered by 7 stories of fear and grief, finding some comfort in shared silence. The clock on the wall ticked past 6:30. Day shift supervisors entered, ready for roll call. We stood, shoulders straighter, faces schooled into professional calm. As we filed out, I glanced back at that table, our silent confessional. I realized we'd survived the night, but the night had not let us go. In the patrol office, I grabbed my personal journal from my coat pocket. The pages were blank, waiting. I wrote one heading: Night of 7 calls, June 8, 2025. And paused. The words blurred as I placed the pen down. I didn't need to catalog every detail. I'd carry them all in my mind and bones. I closed the journal, heart heavy but steady. Stepping outside into the pale dawn, I inhaled deeply. Cold air filling my lungs, birds beginning their morning song. The world was waking, unaware that I'd spent the night wrestling nightmares into submission. I shouldered my bag, badge tucked safely away, and started down the sidewalk toward my car. As I walked, the last vestiges of night lingered in the corner of my vision. The teddy bear in Elmwood's kitchen, the shattered TV, the boy's vacant eyes in the basement, the teller's trembling hands, the bruise on the wife's arm, the woman's hand gripping mine after naloxone, the hostage shouting in the vault. They trailed me silently, ghosts of the shift. I paused at the corner, sunrise breaking fully now. The world stretched wide, bathed in gold. I closed my eyes for a moment, listening to the distant hum of morning traffic. And in that stillness, I felt the full weight of what I'd carried: fear, guilt, sorrow, and the fragile resolve that tomorrow I would wear this weight again, answer the next call, and stand between chaos and calm. I opened my eyes, squared my shoulders, and continued on. A quiet, devastating realization. Even when the sun rises, the night never truly ends within those who answer its call. We pulled into the precinct parking lot at exactly 6 a.m., the cruiser's overhead lights clicking off in silent acknowledgement that the night's work was done. In the pale wash of dawn, the world outside seemed impossibly calm. Nestled between rows of patrol cars and unmarked sedans, the building's brick facade glowed softly under street lamps still clinging to their last moments. I sat behind the wheel for a long moment, staring at the passenger seat where Reyes rubbed her temples, eyes fixed on nothing. Neither of us spoke. Exhaustion was a language we both understood. Finally, Reyes exhaled and opened her door. "One last thing," she murmured, holding up a small cardboard cup with a half-frozen latte someone had left on the hood for us. I offered a grateful nod as she handed it over. My fingers trembled slightly as I peeled back the lid and took a slow sip, the bitter warmth seeping into my chest like a promise. We gathered our gear: flashlights, paperwork, tasers, the everyday instruments of a night spent dancing with danger and human fragility. Inside the station, the air smelled of printer ink and strong coffee. Day shift officers milled about in bright polos and new uniforms, yawning and stretching after a few hours off. They spoke of mundane things: paperwork deadlines, traffic backups, weekend barbecues, as though the world paused for them while we wrestled with darkness. I slipped past them, carrying my duffel bag and the echo of that final call in my bones. In the locker room, I shed my uniform and hung it neatly, the fabric still damp with rain and adrenaline. I thumbed my badge, its edges worn smooth from 1,000 shifts, and set it atop the locker shelf. My reflection in the metal door stared back at me, eyes sunken, face drawn, shoulders hunched. For a moment, I almost didn't recognize the person looking back. Then Reyes stepped in beside me, drying her face with a towel. We shared a brief, understanding glance. No words needed. The night had changed us both. We moved together into the small briefing room, the one with the old bulletin board and the single table littered with empty coffee cups and crumpled donut wrappers. Here, away from prying ears, we let the silence stretch until it felt less like absence and more like shared space carved out for grief and relief. I sank into a plastic chair, placing the latte on the table beside me. Reyes perched on the edge of the table, legs swinging loosely. The overhead fluorescent lights hummed in that flat, unnatural tone of institutional early mornings. I closed my eyes and exhaled, letting the last tremors of the night's adrenaline settle into my lungs. "Did you ever stop to think about how many people we saw last night?" I asked quietly. My voice felt foreign in my own mouth. Reyes shook her head, eyes fixed on the peeling paint of the bulletin board. 7 calls, she said. 7 lives upended. 7 moments where someone's world fell apart. She paused. And us, running from scene to scene, stitching together order from chaos. I nodded. The words hung between us like smoke. Each scene replayed unbidden. The toddler clutching her teddy bear in Elmwood's empty kitchen. The industrial scrapper's basement where a terrified woman fought for breath. The teenage boy slumped in the damp concrete, remembering nothing. The estranged couple in Brighton Lane, their marriage torn open for all to see. The overdose victim who clutched my hand as she fought to stay alive. The vault's echoing chamber where bullets and cables collided in a desperate bid for freedom. And the final hostage, crumpled on the cold marble floor, saved by a fraction of a second and a crackle of taser electricity. Reyes finally looked at me. "And the hardest part," she said, voice soft, "is that each of them will wake up today and try to piece their lives back together, while we get to clock out, go home, and pretend we're all okay. I took another long sip of coffee. The bitterness coated my tongue, a fitting reminder that nothing about last night was sweet. Pretend, I echoed, exhaling slowly. Because really, how do you wear this home? I tapped my chest. How do you unload when there's never a moment that didn't leave a mark? Reyes reached across, placing her hand over mine. Her fingers were warm, steady. We remember, she said. We tell our stories. We lean on each other. She hesitated, then added, and maybe, just maybe, we learn that surviving isn't something we do alone. I closed my eyes, letting her words settle. Outside, the breeze picked up, carrying the scent of early summer through the open window, a whisper of grass and jasmine untouched by the night's horrors. I pictured the parents who'd waited hours for news of their children, the spouses who'd braced for sirens that never came too close, the strangers who saw uniforms and found salvation. And I thought of all those who didn't get saved. That weight too heavy for one shift, one officer, one station. I stood, gathering the cup and the discarded forms on the table. Come on, I said, voice firmer. Let's go find our ride home. Reyes nodded, rising beside me. We exited the briefing room, passing day shift faces who offered polite smiles and nods. They asked how the night went. I answered with a standard busy and managed a tired grin. Back outside, the station lot shimmered in the rising sun. I slid into the cruiser's driver's seat, Reyes climbing in beside me. I started the engine, the rumble familiar and comforting. As we pulled away, the open road stretched out before us, bathed in gold and possibility. Yet even as the world woke, I felt the night clinging to my bones, each call a fracture that would reshape me forever. And in that moment, windows down, warm wind rushing past, I understood the truth I'd been avoiding all night. The night never truly ends for those who answer its call. A quiet, devastating realization. The headset crackles to life, and I check my watch. 10 p.m. sharp. Belmont Communications Center is half lit, fluorescents humming overhead, the glow reflecting off a wall of monitors displaying everything from CAD logs to live camera feeds. I flex my fingers. 30 years behind this desk have taught me that every shift begins the same way, with a hot cup of nearly burned coffee and the rote mantra, be ready. The first page of the call log flips open. A welfare check, Crestwood Lane. Caller says her daughter never came home from a study group at 9 p.m., and that her ex, a real bad apple, she calls him, has history with domestic assaults. I key Officer Patel on patrol, reading her ETA, 6 minutes. Her voice is calm, measured. Patel en route to Crestwood, Roger. I sip coffee and watch the clock tick. 2 minutes later, Patel's radio voice crackles again. 10 to 12 on scene. House dark, no lights. I lean forward, scribbling 10 to 12 next to Patel. In my ear, I hear her footsteps on gravel as she goes to the front door. A pause, the distant click of her flashlight, maybe hunting for house numbers. She calls it clear, and then, in the same breath, I'm going around back. By the time she's at the sliding door, I know there's nothing behind it. No forced entry, no frantic teenager. Back to dispatch. Patel clear at Crestwood. No sign of forced entry or disturbance, but her tone is off, too flat. I tag it C2, possible missing juvenile, and brace myself. We'll check patrol logs and run her ex's plates. But in that silence, I already feel the dread accumulate. Empty rooms at night can hold echoes I can't fill in by radio. At 10:45 p.m., the console lights up again. A domestic disturbance at Brightwood Apartments, Building 4, Unit 307. Loud banging, screaming, furniture breaking, the female caller says, her voice raw. I dispatch Patrol 22, which I know is Officer Reyes and her rookie partner Martinez. They're 15 blocks away. Reyes is solid, 15 years on the street. But you never know what happens when adrenaline drowns out caution. I crunch the numbers. 22 en route to Brightwood, 4307. Medics standing by. The tapping of fingers on keyboard is a steady drumbeat, until I hear the first crash on the scanner. Glass shattering. A woman's frantic cry. My knuckles whiten on the desk. Dispatch to 22. Report traffic conditions. ETA? Silence. Then, shots fired. Just 2 words that slam into my gut like a wrecking ball. I slam the panic button. Protocol demands immediate escalation. All units, shots fired at Brightwood 4-307. Patrol 22 down, medics 20 seconds out. Backup responding. In that moment, I feel the familiar tug. Heart racing. World narrowing to beeps and static. Radio traffic bursts, engines weaving, sirens tearing through the night. I record every second. Time of call, time of shots, medics en route, hospital notification. But the second the bullets ring out, my training fractures. Each moment after feels like wading through molasses. I listen for the follow-up. Victim down, suspect contained, female unresponsive, CPR in progress. Then Reyes, her voice tight through clenched teeth. Dispatch, this is 22 Reyes. Male suspect detained, female victim, negative vitals. My neck prickles. Negative vitals. She's gone. They lost her in that hallway. I type carbon copies of logs and coordinates, but inside I'm staring at a blank screen. The words not connecting to human reality. By 11:30 p.m., the adrenaline has drained. The recording session is a graveyard of grief. The 2 victims at Brightwood, one dead, one wounded, are being transferred. Then another call lights up. Multi-vehicle crash on Highway 17 overpass. A semi, 2 cars, drivers pinned. I patch fire rescue and paramedics, give them the collared coordinates. Standard name, rank, call sign entries. In my ear, metal tearing, glass crunching, the faint groan of injured bodies. Jaws of life needed, I type, keying the hydrant's availability and closest EMS unit. Every dispatch is a triage of information and emotion. Send what you must, hide what you can't. It's past midnight when a shaky voice on the line reports something weird next door on Maple Drive, screaming that sounded animal, not human. The building's abandoned, slated for demolition, but the caller's panic is real. I send Officer Jackson to check it out. 10 minutes tick by, too long. Negative on visual or audible signs, unfounded. Jackson's voice feels empty. I mark the call as UD, undetermined, but unfounded never leaves your mind. You wonder if you missed something, if you've left someone in a heap of pain and silence. At 2:40 a.m., my fingertips ache, my coffee is cold. Crestwood Lane appears again. A second welfare check. Caller says she's found her daughter, locked in the neighbor's shed. I choke on my breath. Patel's name echoes in my mind. I replay the empty house from hours ago. I clear the log for a return trip. Dispatch to Patel, Crestwood Lane, second welfare. Backup en route. I coordinate 2 patrol cars, a K-9 unit, and the detective division. Through the headphone, I hear Patel's boots crunch on gravel, then dispatch 1041 on scene. Then the static holds for too long. I paste her call sign and wait. The silence drones until a single, sharp crack. Shots fired. My pencil falls from numb fingers. Patel, come in. Patrol 22, respond. my voice breaks protocol. The room shrinks to me and that microphone. Seconds stretch, painfully slow, until Officer Jackson's voice filters back. On my way to the shed. Stand by. I don't breathe until I hear, "She's down. Kidnapper's down. Daughter's alive, but..." Words blur in static. I track the medic's ETA, the coroner's unit, the detective's ride-along. Then, as dawn bleeds into the sky, the final updates roll in. Suspect deceased, victim stable, daughter reunited. My screen fills with clear, all units available. I lean back, swivel my chair away from the monitors blinking red for unclosed echoes. My hands shake. I reset the mute, snag another coffee, and hit the logout. The stub of my mug rattles on the desk as I stand. Lights bright, papers rustling, phone silent. Walking out into a world that smells of damp grass and sunrise, I take one last look at the station doors locking behind me. Everything looks normal. Lawnmowers warming, first buses rolling. But I carry the night in my ears, the echo of gunfire, the sobbing dispatch recordings, the cold finality of negative vitals. I know I'll replay it all tonight, and every night after, a loop that never ends, even when the sirens fall silent. The sun's first fingers are brushing the rooftops when I finally pull into my driveway. The radio in my cruiser clicks itself off. Silence for the first time in 8 hours. I sit behind the wheel a moment longer, staring at the dashboard's dull glow, feeling your heartbeat echo back at you through the steel cage of the cab. Every muscle trembles, my hands, my jaw, even my eyelids feel heavy as if weighed down by unseen lead. I kill the engine, and the world outside seems too bright, too loud. Birds are already at their nests, cleaning feathers and chirping like nothing happened. The neighbor's lawn sprinkler hisses rhythmically. A jogger runs past, earbuds in, oblivious. My uniform feels like a costume I'm still wearing. Heavy fabric, soaked with adrenaline and grief. The front porch light flickers on, and for the first time that morning, I realize I'm not alone. My daughter, Abby, stands at the doorway, terry cloth robe thrown over her pajamas, hair mussed as if she just woke up before dawn. She looks concerned, eyes wide in the halogen glow. "Dad?" she says, voice sleepy but wary. "You came in really late." I force a smile that hurts my cheeks. "Got caught up," I say, dragging myself out of the cruiser. Every step feels numb, echoing the hollow thrum still pulsing in my chest. "Long night." She waits for more, but I tighten my jaw and put a hand on her shoulder. The uniform's badge rests against her robe, shining dully. "Go back to bed," I tell her. "I'll see you in a bit." She nods and slips back inside. I linger a moment, hand on the porch rail, listening to the creak of the house settling into its morning calm. I breathe deep, tasting coffee I haven't yet had, feeling something like guilt twist in my gut, because she shouldn't see me like this. Not at this hour, eyes red-rimmed, gait unsteady. Inside, the smell of toast and bacon drifts from the kitchen. My wife, Lisa, stands at the stove in her bathrobe, apron stained from last night's dinner. She hums softly to herself, the burner's flame reflecting in her dark hair. She turns at my footsteps. "Hey," she says, voice gentle. "Rough night?" I nod. "Yeah." She reaches out but stops halfway, uncertain. She knows enough not to pry, but it's written all over me. The stiffness in my shoulders, the way my eyes flicker away from hers. "Coffee?" she offers, motioning to a porcelain pot on the counter. I slide in beside her, palms splayed on the formica. The mug is warm, the aroma thick with roast and bitterness. I wrap my hands around it, letting the warmth seep into my skin. She watches me sip, then asks quietly, "Are you okay?" I want to say I'm fine, that dispatch logs and incident flags are just lines on a screen. But how can I explain the weight of every breath I drew this morning? The echo of that radio call, Patel's voice trailing off into nothing. The little girl in the shed, eyes wide with confusion, the sudden crack of gunfire still reverberating in my skull. Instead, I close my eyes, lean back against the counter, and let the steam fog my glasses. Just tired, I say. She doesn't push. Instead, she rinses my mug, sets it in the sink, and reaches out to smooth a curl off my forehead. Her fingertips are warm, grounding. "You need to lie down," she says softly. I nod, finishing the last of the coffee. My body trembles as I stand. My legs feel like they could buckle at any moment. She steadies me as I walk toward the stairs. The hallway light is dim. The bedroom door waits at the end like an open promise of oblivion. Upstairs, I strip off the uniform, badge, radio mic, duty belt, and set them on the chair like trophies I no longer want. The shirt slides off my skin. Cold air in the silent room. I toss my boots to the floor. Socks thump against the carpet. I lie down, face to the cool pillow, curtains half drawn to let in the pale morning light. For a moment, there's quiet. The kind of silence that feels fragile, as if any noise might shatter it. And then I hear it. The faint beep of an alarm clock downstairs that Lisa must have set for my shift tomorrow. The distant hum of the refrigerator. The creak of the house settling again. My mind drifts back through the night. Patel's steady footsteps at Crestwood. The final moments of that barricade. Gunfire echoing off cinder block walls. The scream of crushing metal on the overpass. The tinny crackle of Jackson's radio telling me I'd lost her partner. It all plays behind my eyelids like a slow-motion reel. Sleep feels like a distant shore. Dark, unreachable. My breath's shallow, my heart pounding in the hush of the room. I roll onto my side and close my eyes, but the faces are there. The girl we rescued, clutching her mother. Patel, lying in the shed, eyes glassy. The ex-husband with the tumor, face contorted by pain and surgery. I feel the weight of their stories settle into my bones. I wonder how many more nights like this I can carry. My phone buzzes. No caller ID. I let it ring out. I drift, half dreaming, half buried in the mattress. A quiet promise whispering through the fog in my head. Tomorrow, I'll be back there, behind the headset, making split-second decisions that decide who lives and who dies. Because for me, there is no off-duty. The final call never really ends. And even now, as I lie here, I can't escape the faint echo in my ear. Negative vitals. A single phrase that will follow me into every silent room, every dawn I don't see coming. The real emergency never ends when the sirens fall silent. My eyes snap open before my alarm ever sounds. Dawn's pale pink light seeps through the curtains, washed out and hollow, as if it's apologizing for intruding. I lie still for a moment, listening to my own breath. Shallow, uneven, each inhale a shallow stab at normalcy. The room is too quiet, too empty. I twist on the pillow, half expecting to replay the night's echoes again, but something new scrapes at the back of my skull. The cold dread that I've got to do it all again. I roll out of bed and pad barefoot across the carpet. The uniform is still folded on the chair. Crisp, black fabric stained by last night's blood and sweat. I stare at it for a long beat, thinking about what it means to slip back into that skin. Underwear, socks, boots. Each article feels heavier than it should. I lace up my boots slowly, my fingers fumbling. The boots usually smell like rubber and polish. Today, they smell like dirt and grief. Downstairs, the kitchen is empty. A single chair sits at the table. coffee-colored stains trailing like blood spatter on the laminate top. I slide into it, mind still spinning, and reach for the mug that's been sitting there since yesterday morning. There's a ring of congealed coffee at the bottom. I rinse it out at the sink, pour fresh brew, and cradle the mug in my hands, letting the steam warm my knuckles. The first sip tastes like forgiveness. Bitter, hard to swallow, but necessary. I check my phone. 3 messages. 1 from Lisa. Hope you slept. Love you. 1 from dispatch. Shift starts at 2200 hours. See you then. And 1 missed call from Captain Morales at 3:15 a.m. I listen to the voicemail, heart twisting. We need a sit-down today. Come by my office at 1400 hours. The undercurrent in his voice is too calm to be good news. I know what he's going to say. Internal Affairs wants to debrief me on the shots fired in that shed, the death of a fellow officer, the tension rising from protocol breaches. I set the phone down and swallow the last of my coffee, mouth dry. By mid-afternoon, I'm back in uniform. Belt strapped tight, badge shining, radio clipped for the world to see. The precinct is busier than I've ever seen it during the day. Detectives pacing in the hall, civilian cars in the lot, reporters' vans idling outside. Inside, the echoes of last night's violence still linger in the carpet dyes and the stale coffee in the break room. I nod curtly to the desk sergeant and keep moving toward Captain Morales' office. The door is open, the blinds are halfway down. Morales is sitting behind his desk, papers stacked, pen resting on a folder marked confidential. His face is expressionless, the kind that tells you you're in for a reprimand or worse. I close the door. The click of the latch sounds louder than gunfire. I stand by his desk, hands folded in front of me. Sit down, he says, voice low. I take the chair. My back tenses, expecting accusations, training violations, failure to follow backup protocols. Instead, Morales pushes the folder across. I want to hear your account. Exactly what happened in that shed last night. He taps the folder. I nod and clear my throat, ready to recount every call, every dispatch code. I talk for 10 minutes, maybe 20. The click of his pen writing on that folder is like a metronome counting down my mistakes. When I finish, Morales leans back. You did your job, he says, surprising me. Dispatch, coordinate, support, the men and women on the ground. They made the calls that saved the girl and contained the suspect. His eyes hold mine. You kept calm under fire. That's not common. I swallow. Relief surges, but guilt claws in behind it. I lost Reyes, I say, voice low. I wasn't there to back her up. Morales nods slowly. You did all you could, but you weren't the one in the hallway. We'll give you time off if you need it. Or we can send you back to dispatch, away from the front. My stomach lurches, away from the heart of the action. That feels like exile. I stand. I'll stay. My voice cracks. I need to stay. He nods, eyes soft. I figured as much. Back at my console, I sit in the dispatch chair, headset resting on my ears like a shackle I can't remove. The monitors light up. Incoming calls, CAD entries, pending status updates. I check my watch, 21:50. 10 minutes until the next shift. I clear my throat and sip coffee. I've got to focus. Because when that headset crackles, I have to be ready to be the calm voice in the chaos. 10:04 p.m. Suspicious vehicle, Ashford District. The first call cuts through the hum. A white sedan circling Ashford Plaza, headlights off. A neighbor is worried. I patch Officer Nguyen to investigate. She's 2 minutes away. The car pulls into the dark lot, idling. Nguyen's footsteps approach. I've got visual. I track her movements on the camera feed, her flashlight beam bouncing across the hood. I tell her to stay back and run the plates. It returns to a rental company, no flags. Unfounded, I log, but ghost worry lingers in my gut. 10:27 p.m. Medical emergency, Sandy Point Apartments. An elderly man has slipped in the bathroom. He's conscious but bleeding. I dispatch EMS and Patrol 15. Good, solid unit. I stay on the line, guiding the caller through pressure points to slow bleeding. The man's voice rasps. I can't. Hold. I keep him talking, keep him alive. By the time EMS arrives, he's pale but stable. Thanks, he whispers. Relief jolts through me, but it's tempered. Another good deed, another bad night waiting to happen. 11:15 p.m., noise complaint, Willow Creek Estates. Kids are racing ATVs through private property. I send Patrol 8 and Code Enforcement. I hear engines roar through my earpiece. When they arrive, teens, parents called. Impound the bikes. I coordinate towing. This is routine, minor adrenaline, no blood. But after last night, even the roar of a small engine sends a tremor through my spine. Midnight brings a series of medical calls, overdoses, panic attacks, cardiac events. My screen floods with red and yellow icons. I dispatch ambulances, call for police escorts when needed. It's the same rhythm: call, dispatch, monitor, update. But every ping of distress feels amplified, like the world's heartbeat accelerated through my console. At 1:02 a.m., another domestic, Breakwater Drive. Two neighbors arguing. I patch Officers Davis and Torres. In the background, shouting, a slammed door. I coach them through de-escalation, breathing phrases, calm reminders. 30 seconds later, all parties calm, separated, debriefing. I log it, resolved. The screen blinks, 1:45 a.m. Then the unthinkable. A minor fender bender called in from Crestwood Lane, the same street where it all began. 2 cars, no injuries. But my heart hammers. I send Patel's partner, Officer Sullivan, and K9. I watch the overhead camera, traffic cones, blinking hazard lights. It's innocent. The drivers exchange insurance, then leave. Clear, I log. My breath shudders. 2:30 a.m. An unconscious man off the trail at Pinewood Park. Hypothermia suspected. I dispatch EMS and a ranger unit. I talk the caller through, building a makeshift shelter until help arrives. The man's teeth chatter through the phone. When EMS arrives, patient stable. I breathe, jotting cold exposure in the log. 3:18 a.m., shots fired. A voice cracks in my earpiece. My head snaps up. Where? I bark. Corner of Pine and Marshall. I dispatch patrol. My notes flood with urgency. Guns drawn, suspect down, medics to secure scene. I watch as officers converge on the blue dot. Then relief. Suspect detained, non-fatal wound to leg. The victim is the shooter himself. He's alive. I mark negative vitals off my worry list. 4:05 a.m. An infant breathing problems at Elm Street. I stay on the line, calm the parents, talk them through positioning until paramedics reach them. He's got a pulse, the medic says. Airway cleared. Tears in my voice. Thank God. 5:30 a.m. Lights flicker, monitors dim, the shift end is near. The final call. A gas leak in a bakery on 5th. Fire units and hazmat in tandem. I coordinate evacuations, traffic control, reroute patrols. By the time the leak's contained, the sun's edge peaks above the horizon. I log, all clear. When I hit shift end, my body feels as empty as it did 3 days ago when I first logged in. The screen goes dark. I unclip my headset, rub my temples. The world outside is waking. Delivery trucks rumble down the street. Joggers with headphones drift past. The smell of fresh bread wafts from the corner bakery. Ironic, given the night's gas scare. I slip out of the dispatch chair, shoulders slumped. I carry the weight of every dispatch, every heartbeat I tracked through the earpiece. I lock my console and head toward the exit. There's no glory here, no medals, just logs and memories. I step into the dawn, another ghost in uniform, and the sentinel hum of Belmont fades behind me. Because this job never truly stops. Even when the shift ends, the echoes remain. And every sunrise feels like the start of another silent emergency that I can't ever fully log or escape. I step inside the front door, boots clacking against the hallway tile. Lisa's already at work, her car gone and the sink empty of the coffee cup I left last night. The house is quiet except for the distant hum of the refrigerator. I pause, forehead against the wall, feeling the weight of 1,000 beeps and static-filled voices pressing into my skull. I close my eyes and let the white noise of domestic tranquility wash over me, trying to scrub out the memories of that second shift. The suffocating hush before the gunshot, the thud of the suspect dropping, the frantic bark of K9 units. At the kitchen table, I pull out a notebook, pages yellowed with margin notes from every call I've ever handled. I flip to the last page, notes on the gas leak, the hypothermia case, the fender bender that nearly made my heart seize in my chest. And then I tear it out, crumple it, and drop it in the trash. None of it matters. The only thing that demands ink is the image of Patel's flashlight beam falling on that dirty shed floor, catching the glint of her fallen badge and the smear of dried blood. I force myself to eat a bowl of oatmeal, swallowing each spoonful while staring straight ahead. The chalky texture fills my mouth but does little to fill the hollow in my gut. I think about the next shift. Another graveyard, another set of disembodied voices masked by grainy audio. I think about the moment I squeezed into those boots again, the jingle of my keys in the dead of night as though I were returning to the scene of a crime I'd never left. I check my mailbox, actual mail, not the digital logs I live by. There's a letter with no return address. I open it with a pin and pull out a single sheet. A photograph taped to the paper, edges worn. It's of the shed, taken from outside, nighttime, a flashlight illuminating broken boards. Behind the shed, just out of the beam, a dark shape hunches, face obscured but somehow familiar in its stance. On the back of the photo, scrawled in hurried letters, "You missed something." I swallow hard. The hair on my arm stands up. I turn the photo over again, searching for clues. No date, no timestamp, just that ominous message. My pulse spikes. I look out the window. The street is calm, nothing more than early afternoon silence. But through the glass I hear it. The faint echo of radio static, the crack of a distant shot, the low hiss of a leaking gas line. I cup the photo with both hands, pressing the cool surface against my palm, and feel the tremor in my fingers. I rush back to dispatch logs on my computer. Every time Patel called 10 to 12 is highlighted, every negative vitals marked. I scroll through the night's timestamps. 10:12, 11:04, 11:17, 2:03, 3:46, until I reach the final 10:41 on scene in Crestwood. My breath hitches. I freeze as I notice a single entry I hadn't seen before. An extra line slipped between Patel's "shots fired" and Jackson's "she's down." A stub of text that reads only 4:57 a.m., unknown unit entered shed, confirmation pending. I lean back, heart pounding. I don't remember hearing another unit, and I certainly don't recall anyone else reporting in. My throat goes dry. I flash on the shape in the photograph, silent, hidden in the shadows. My stomach turns over. The logical part of me wants to call dispatch and demand clarification, read the raw log entries aloud. But another part, a cold, sinking part, knows that some answers come with a price. It knows that trauma isn't confined to the earpiece. Outside, a car door slams. I snap around. It's my neighbor, Mr. Vance, with his mail. I recognize him by the high-pitched squeak of his shoes on the porch. He gives me a nod as he retreats down the path. I watch him disappear into the bright afternoon, oblivious to the silent countdown in my chest. I slide the photograph into my pocket, don't want to lose it, don't want to show it to anyone. For the next hour, I grapple with the memory of that extra entry. I reload the logs, timestamp by timestamp, but the line is gone, clean, just like the other entries. No mention of an unknown unit, no indication anyone else was there after Jackson's arrival. I refresh the screen again and again. Nothing. When Lisa comes home that evening, the house is darker than I expected. She finds me at the kitchen counter, coffee mug in hand, and that same haunted look in my eyes. "Long day?" she asks. I force a smile, but it cracks at the corner. "Just paperwork," I lie. She studies me. "You're still terrified," she says softly. I nod, drawing the photo deeper into my pocket. "Something's off," I admit. "I saw something in the logs that shouldn't be there, and this." I show her the photograph. Her eyes widen. She glances at the shed in the image, then back at me. "That looks like you." I swallow and see her realization dawning. The shape crouches like I remember crouching. Boots splayed, holster at the ready. But the person in the photo isn't me. The coat hangs differently around the shoulders. The way the flashlight beam cuts across the ground is from a different angle. "Whoever it is," I say, voice low, "it was watching us." Her hand finds mine on the countertop. Warmth meets cold. "You need to report that," she says. I shake my head. If I do, they'll think I'm losing my mind. We stand in silence, the weight of the night pressing in through the walls. A single drawer creak echoes in the hall, apt for a world that's shifting beneath my feet. I release her hand and pull out my phone, fingers hovering over 911's direct line. I picture the call. "Belmont Dispatch, what's your emergency?" I hesitate, heart thundering. Because the real emergency isn't the one you can patch through. It's the one that follows you home, hides in the logs, waits in the dark beside you. I drop the phone onto the counter. I clutch the photograph, thumb brushing the cold surface one last time. And I whisper to the empty kitchen, so only I can hear, "I know you're there." I spend the rest of the afternoon on edge, the photograph burning a hole in my pocket. Every rustle of the blinds, every sliver of shadow beyond the kitchen window sends a jolt through my chest. I try to keep busy, checking the baby monitor, folding laundry, loading the dishwasher, but my hands shake so badly I nick my finger on a plate. When the blood wells up, I barely feel it. I press a paper towel against the cut, stinging, and stare at the smear of crimson as if it's proof that I'm still alive, still human. By early evening, I can't stand the thought of being alone in the house any longer. I tiptoe to Abby's room and peek inside. She's curled on her twin bed, stuffed animals arrayed around her, breathing softly. I brush a strand of hair from her forehead. "I'll be back in a minute," I whisper. She murmurs something and turns over without waking. I close the door and slip out, walking down the silent hallway that still echoes with last night's horrors. In the foyer, I grab the keys to my cruiser. Anything to feel insulated in metal and glass. The precinct calls for overtime patrol coverage tonight, and I volunteer without thinking. "Anything to get back into the dark," I tell the sergeant. He nods, hands me the logbook, and points me toward a marked cruiser. I climb in, the vinyl seat cold against my uniform, and record my start time. 19:02. I drive out of the neighborhood deliberately slow. headlights sweeping the curbs and driveways like a searchlight over an unfamiliar battlefield. The precinct bulletin flashes a reminder about that gas leak call at the bakery. Apparently, someone tried to sabotage the lines, though they caught the culprit before anyone was hurt. I run the suspect's name, a local drifter with a minor harassment record. The case file is thin. I wonder if that might connect to the photograph somehow. Another stray in the night watching. By 2015, I'm in Ashford District, making the rounds under streetlights that flicker with the faint electrical hum I know from last night's dispatch. I stop at a 7-Eleven for coffee and roll a cigarette in the lot behind the dumpster. The air smells of fried snacks and exhaust. I light up, the flame from my lighter illuminating my face in an orange glow. I think about Patel's flashlight beam, how it landed on that pool of blood, and then I think about the shape crouching beyond the light. Who was that? Why did they sneak in after we'd already cuffed the suspect? I crush the cigarette under my boot and finish my coffee. Dispatch chirps. Suspicious person reported at Willow Creek Estates, Unit 12. I respond 10-4 and roll onto the service road. The apartment complex looms gray and silent. Windows are all dark. I park under a lamppost that buzzes faintly, lights me in a pale cone. The resident calls from behind me, voice thin and anxious. I saw someone in a hoodie sneaking between my cars. I radio in, patrol on scene, then slip out of the cruiser, hand resting on my flashlight and taser. My boots crunch gravel as I round the corner. Up ahead, a dark figure slips between parked SUVs. I call out, "Police, show me your hands." No answer, just the soft scuff of shoes. I follow, training the flashlight beam on the person's back. Hoodie up, head down, they pad off toward the maintenance sheds. I close the distance, heart pounding. "Stop!" I shout. The figure freezes, then whirls around, face hidden in shadow. The beam cuts across the hood and falls on the same profile I saw in the photograph. Broad shoulders, the same stance, but no taser or holster, just bare hands. My stomach flips. My finger twitches on the trigger guard. "Who are you?" I demand. No answer. The figure turns and flees into the darkness between the buildings. I chase, every step echoing off concrete walls. I round the corner and nothing. Just an empty courtyard and a chain-link fence. I scan for an escape route. Then my flashlight beam lands on fresh footprints in the gravel. One set leading back the way I came. Another set heading toward the adjacent alley. I follow the new prints toward the alley's mouth, but the figure is gone. I shine my light on the chain-link door, undisturbed, no fingerprints I can see. Cold dread settles like ice in my chest. I check my watch, 20:43. Dispatch buzzes. Unit 12 clear, no sign of suspect. I key the mic. All units be on the lookout for a lone male in a hoodie, approximate height 6 feet 2 inches, last seen Willow Creek Estates. I scroll through the suspect logs, no match. I radio in for backup. Officer Ruiz is 20 blocks away. "I'll meet you there," he says. I nod, hang up, wait. An uneasy silence presses from all sides. My breath puffs in the cold air, and I wonder, was that person really there, or was it a trick of light and memory? I glance back the way I came. Will I see them again? But the complex is still under the flickering lamplights, every shadow a potential hiding place. Ruiz arrives in a patrol car, lights off, slow roll. He kills the engine, steps out, and I brief him. He shines his light into the alley, whispering into his radio. Scanning perimeter. We sweep the area, nothing but concrete and gravel. I feel foolish. I radio dispatch. Area negative, suspect must have slipped past. The hum of the radio feels too loud, an accusation. I nod at Ruiz and head back to my cruiser. We drive in silence to the main road where I sign off the call. Ruiz says, "You okay?" I force a laugh, just nerves. But my hands tremble on the wheel. I park back at the precinct lot at 2115. I sign my overtime entries and grab the next shift's logbook, section 007, note the detail. Inside, the station is quiet. A janitor mops the hallway, whistle playing tunelessly. I pass him without a word, heading straight for the dispatch console. I slip into the chair reluctantly, headset already warmed by memory. The screen flickers up. CAD entries, pending events. I bite my lip, brush my thumb over the photo in my pocket. I don't want to log another call if it's just going to lead me into another dead end. But duty calls. I hit ready and lean forward. 2130, medical call, Crestwood Lane. A driver rolled his car into a ditch. No injuries reported. I dispatch EMS and Patrol 19. I open a new log, Crestwood Medical. My eyes sting as I type. That street carries too many memories now, but I can't run from it. 2212, barking dog complaint, Pinewood Trail. I send the animal control unit, minor nuisance. 2305, domestic disturbance, Willow Apartments. Same complex from tonight. 2 tenants arguing over rent. I patch Patrol 12 and Officer Nguyen. I grit my teeth, no hoodie this time, and let them handle it. Time passes in a steady drip of calls. Again, the world's emergencies on my screen. By 2 a.m., I've dispatched nearly a dozen minor events. At 2:47, my heart nearly stops. Shots fired, 300 block Crestwood Lane. My gaze snaps to the log. Coordinates match the old Ramirez home. "Patel, come in," I shout. But silence. Dispatch protocol kicks in. Medics, SWAT backup, perimeter. I key every available unit. I don't hesitate this time. I throw on my coat, run to the roll call room, grab my radio and extra flashlight and race out. My boots pound the stairs, adrenaline ripping through me. Dumping keys into my pocket, I sprint to the front door. Door squeaks open, and I'm out into the cold night. Under the lamplight, the Ramirez house looks deserted, windows dark. I check the perimeter quickly as I hear sirens draw near. My radio buzzes. Unit 22 on scene. Suspect barricaded in shed. Floodlights snap on across the yard. I see Patel's silhouette behind the K9 unit, backup behind her, the same shed. My stomach churns. I slide alongside the fence and catch Patel's eye through the chain link, her face ghostly in the beam. She raises a hand in acknowledgement. I hesitate a heartbeat, but dispatch training overrides. I radio, I'm moving to assist. K9 stand down. Patel nods, and then she's in the door, shield up. I wait, heart thundering, as officers position themselves. A flashbang goes off, bright, deafening. I close my eyes. When I open them, Patel's figure is at the door, flashlight beam dancing across the interior. A shot echoes. I duck behind a truck. Another shot. I lean over, peer through the fence. The shed door hangs open. Patel is down again, radio mic cracked at her side. The suspect stands at the far wall, hands raised but eyes wild. I break from cover, sprint toward the shed. "Police, drop the weapon." The suspect glances at me, raises the gun, and I realize it's not the same man we cuffed days ago. It's a stranger, tall, hoodie up, face obscured. My heart stops. The figure from tonight, from the photo, from the Willow Creek chase. He didn't flee, he was waiting. The gun fires once, twice. I hear Patel scream. In that instant, time slows. I dive forward, tackle the suspect, feel the impact drive air from my lungs. The weapon skitters across the wooden floor. He wraps his arms around me, trying to wrestle free, but I'm trained for this. I wrench backward, twisting him off balance. Officers rush in and take the stranger down, cuffs snapping on wrists. I roll to my feet and rush to Patel's side, dark blood soaking her uniform. Her eyes are open, glassy. I grab her arm. "Patel, hang on!" My voice cracks. She blinks. "You came back," she rasps. "I knew you would." My throat catches. Medics sweep in, lift her onto a stretcher. The suspect lies on the floor, panting, hoodie half fallen to reveal a face still hidden in shadow. I stand in the grim glow of the floodlights, chest heaving, blood pounding in my ears. The stranger glares at me with a hollow intensity, and I feel a cold realization settle in. I never missed something. I never imagined this. He was always there, watching every move, every call I logged, every step I took between calls. He was the unknown unit in my logs, the figure in the photograph, the shape in every shadow. As the ambulance door closes, carrying Patel away, I stare at the suspect. He doesn't speak. He just lifts his head, hoodie slipping further back, revealing eyes that gleam with a madness I recognize all too well. My own. I raise my radio, voice barely more than a whisper. "Dispatch, suspect detained. I need backup at Crestwood Lane. And send SWAT out here, this isn't over." My hand trembles as I slip the photograph from my pocket and hold it up so the floodlights catch it. The image of the shed, the dark shape, and the chilling note. "You missed something." He lunges forward, eyes burning with meaning, and I realize the note wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And now, the final call of the night rings in my head with crystal clarity. You missed something. A quiet dread blooms in my chest as I stare across the shed's threshold at the stranger who's taken my place in the night, and I know there's nothing left I can log to save me. I watch the paramedics close the ambulance doors on Patel's stretcher and ease her into the back. Her hand, pale and limp, dangles past the gurney's edge. A single bead of crimson catches the floodlight as it drips to the asphalt. For a moment, the world narrows to that drop of blood and the thud of my heartbeat. I slip the photograph back into my pocket, blood and ink together, and holster my shock as officers shepherd the hooded stranger away in cuffs. The night air is thick, almost suffocating. Sirens grow louder as additional patrol cars and the precinct's SUV arrive, lights flashing in concentric arcs. Detectives rush forward, clipboards in hand. An evidence tech kneels by the shed's threshold, snapping photos of splintered wood and blood spatter. I stand back, feeling my uniform stick to my skin, my breath catching in my throat each time I remember how close Patel came to dying, and how easily I could have been next. Detective Reyes, no relation to the fallen officer, approaches, eyes sharp behind her glasses. "Lieutenant," she says, "though I'm not a lieutenant, not yet. We'll need your statement, and the suspect's confession." She nods at the man in custody as he's led past like an empty shell. His hoodie is gone, his features are gaunt, sunken cheeks, eyes shadowed by exhaustion, lips cracked from dehydration. He doesn't look at me, he stares at the shed's doorway. He might have predicted it all along. I clear my throat. "He followed me," I say, voice rough. From the night of the domestic call, from the crash, from the gas leak, from the overpass extraction. He was there, always there, watching, logging every move into his mind. Reyes takes notes. "How'd you know he was in the logs?" she asks. I swallow. There was an entry, a phantom call. It disappeared when I tried to find it later. But the photo... I press my palm to my chest, feeling the photograph's outline through my shirt. That message... You missed something. He was baiting me, testing me. And when I came back tonight, he tried to finish what he started. Reyes glances at the shed, then back at me. He admitted it. I shake my head. He just watched. He insinuated himself into every call, every dispatch. He studied me more than I studied him. But when I tackled him, I realized he wasn't just a bystander. He was the unknown unit in the logs. I closed my eyes for a second, breathing through the image, my cursor hovering over a log entry that never existed, a phantom record only I could see. It was never about saving that girl or stopping the gas leak. It was about me, my fear, my attention, my mistakes. He wanted me to notice him. By 4:15 a.m., the crime scene is sealed. Patel is airlifted to the trauma center. Her prognosis still uncertain. I remain on the perimeter, absorbing the echoes of laughter and alarms receding into the night. My radio lies silent on the concrete beside my boot, an object as alien to me now as a weapon drawn in routine. I wonder how many phantom units I've missed in all my years. A dispatcher who never sleeps, a silent observer more attuned to logs than to life. I walk toward the cruiser, boots squelching on gravel. I find my keys in my pocket alongside the worn photograph. I hold it up under the hoodlight. The image is grainy, shadows enveloping that same shed, the scrawled words exactly as I remember. But now I see something new. At the corner of the frame, beneath the protruding floorboard, lies a small pendant, the charred remains of a silver cross necklace I wore on my first day of dispatch, the day I swore to protect lines of communication and lives behind them. My fingers brush the spot in the photo. I realize that 2 years ago, on my first death notification call, I wore that cross. I haven't taken it off since. And tonight, that same pendant appeared in the photograph, as if he'd stolen it from my jacket pocket when I tackled him moments ago. He hasn't just been watching. He's been inside my life, rifling through my personal world like an invasive program writing itself into my code. A chill slithers up my spine. I drop the photograph, letting it flutter to the gravel at my feet, spine up like a broken book. I press my palm to my heart, still racing, and I know I'll never be the same. The dawn light is bleeding into the sky now, strange and pallid. Patrol cars form a blockade behind me. Officers pack up cones and crime scene tape. The world is awakening, stretching and yawning as if nothing happened overnight. I lift my eyes to the shed one last time. The door is ajar, its wood splintered where the stranger pressed his weight, braced for something I never anticipated. I step forward, breach the threshold. Inside, the flashlight beams from my belt catch the remnants of last night. Bullet casings glinting like distressed stars, a smear of blood on the floorboards. A single dog-eared address book open to a handwritten entry. Dispatcher. Lives held in your hands. Watch your step. My pulse hammers so loud I can hear it. I pick up the address book, turning brittle pages. My finger lingers on the scrawled lines. Every call I dispatched, every life I tracked, every graveyard shift date and timestamp. And then I see it. A blank page at the end, 8 lines long, with call signs neatly printed, and a final entry. 007, Belmont Dispatch, June 10th, 2025, 4:07 a.m. Unknown unit entered shed, shot, fired. I freeze. My breath catches. It's typed in his handwriting, perfect, clinical. He'd figured out how to access the dispatch logs remotely, injected his own entries and inserted himself into every narrative I thought I controlled. Every phantom entry was his calling card, a reminder that behind every console, every radio, there's a human with flaws and blind spots. I snap the book shut. my reflection splitting in the glass of the shed's solitary window. 2 mirrored faces stare back. One, the veteran dispatcher who believed he'd seen it all. The other, the stranger who knew exactly how to exploit my blind trust in the logs and in routine. I slipped the book into my breast pocket, careful not to crumple it. Outside, cranes and tow trucks roll in to haul away the wrecked cruiser and the battered shed. Officers bustle like ants, packing evidence boxes, snapping last photos. The stranger is led away in handcuffs. I know he'll face charges for assault, trespassing, attempted murder, but I also know he'll stay alive. He tried to kill me, but he survived because he wanted me to see him, to believe him real, and to confront the terror that lives in my own mind. I step out into the dawn as patrol lights fade behind me. My uniform feels drenched and cold, like a shroud I can't shed. I light a cigarette with trembling hands, inhaling hard. The smoke fills my lungs with acrid comfort. Around me, the world holds its breath. Neighbors jogging past, a newspaper boy tossing bundles onto doorsteps, engines starting in distant parking lots. Life goes on, but I won't go back inside the dispatch center. Not today, not ever the same. I pull the pendant from my breast pocket, the silver cross dulled by 2 nights of chaos, and tuck it into my palm. I stare at it until the sun fully lambasts the shadows. Then I pocket it and slip into my cruiser one last time. I start the engine. The low hum is familiar, almost reassuring. I flick the radio off. Dispatch calls are silent now. I drive away from the shed, the photograph, the wounded front lines. And as the streetlights wink off behind me, I realize, with a quiet, devastating clarity, that the only thing scarier than the calls I answer is the one that came from inside my own mind, and that unit was never unknown at all. I swing the cruiser onto the highway and let the miles slip by beneath my wheels. Each street lamp, each exit sign, a metronome clicking off what feels like the end of something and the beginning of everything. The morning traffic is light. A lone biker weaving through lanes, a semi idling at a truck stop ahead. I pass the exit for Crestwood Lane and catch my reflection in the side window. Eyes rimmed red, uniform rumpled, hands still trembling on the wheel. I pull off at the next rest area, cut the engine, and sit in silence. Dawn's gray light filters through the windshield, illuminating the dash's dust motes. I close my eyes, and for a moment, I almost imagine calm. The sound of wind through trees, the distant call of morning birds. But instead, I hear it again. The soft rattle of that final entry when I check the logs, the phantom unit code I never entered. The click of my own keyboard, time-stamped by someone else. I open my glove box and retrieve the charred edge of the silver cross pendant, the one I thought lost in the mud of last night's chase. It's scorched and bent, like a prayer folded wrong. I close my fingers around it, feeling the weight of every call I've ever dispatched, every life I thought I controlled by pushing buttons and sending units out into the dark. My thumb traces the cross's uneven surface, and I realize this morning that nothing can tip the balance back. The stranger wasn't just stalking me through calls. He infiltrated my mind, rewrote the script, and revealed the rudder was never mine to hold. I set the pendant on the dash, watch it catch the pale light as a single tear splashes down onto its tarnished surface. I start the engine again, knowing I can't stay here. The road ahead is empty, but I feel him in every passing shadow, every radio static burst I choose not to answer. Because the final dispatch wasn't to a unit at all, it was to me. You're never off the clock.